The story opens on a battlefield where our hero A lays injured, breathing heavily, steam billowing from his mouth. He observes two of his comrades ahead, unable to discern from which direction the enemy is attacking. He looks at them, realizing he cannot help due to his own physical condition. A man appears on the horizon, brandishing his magical glowing sword as he prepares for battle. In that moment, he vanquishes our hero's two allies with his sword. After committing the crime, this individual immediately approaches our protagonist. The man, known as Gujo Meng, is the respected elder of the Wuanshan mountain clan. With a sense of confidence and duty, he carries out actions that he deems necessary. His mission is clear: the boy must not survive. Gazing into the man's eyes, the boy contemplated his actions. He yearned to be strong so he could defend his dignity against anyone he encountered. However, he couldn't survive his encounter with the supreme martial artist, who represented the epitome of power. Mortally wounded and bleeding to death, this realization dawned upon him. Racked with pain from his injuries and the stark realization that his game had abruptly ended, he lay on the ground, a fallen warrior forced to accept his defeat. Our hero joined the Demon Academy to gain strength, where he consistently faced numerous challenges over several years. However, he faced a grave injustice on his journey when a massive warrior confronted him, intent on taking his life. The boy refused to accept his fate. He believed that mastering a more advanced martial art would equip him with the necessary skills for self-defense. However, realizing that he had done everything possible and it was still not enough, he came to accept his fate, however unreasonable it seemed. The situation was dire. The man clutched his bleeding wound, which left him no peace of mind. With a face as curious as blood-stained beer, he breathed heavily, asking himself just one question. Was he really about to die? He thought he was in a dream, but suddenly something appeared before him. In the game, there was an option to either continue from the saved point or restart. With a grave expression, the man switched to continue from his saved progress, only to realize that it hadn't been saved. Without a second thought, he clicked on the restart option. Almost immediately, he lost consciousness. His lids fell shut and he drifted into thought. He didn't want to die. He yearned to live. These thoughts raced through his mind. All he needed was to choose to restart his life, fully aware of its potential implications. The incident was caused by the game demanding a reset to the moment just prior to the personal meeting with the Supreme Court Justice. At that moment, our hero was unaware that the first stage had commenced. Out at sea, bathing in the bright sunshine below, our hero was reclining on the surface of the water. He awoke devoid of ammunition and without a sword. Completely rejuvenated, his name was Shiny Snow. His story begins with him studying the demonic arts, known to shorten a lifespan. Although he joined the Demon Academy, he refrained from learning any demonic arts for many years, instead focusing his efforts on scouting missions for search parties. His life was abruptly ended by death, yet his legacy continued. In this state, he realized his previous life was filled with negativity. He lifted his aching head, already lying in bed. He realizes that he is awake. When he opens his eyes, he sees the ceiling of the house in front of him. He doesn't understand what transpired, or his current location, having recently been in another dimension. He was distraught, screaming out of confusion about the situation he was facing. Horrified, he vaults from the bed, aware that something is amiss. After the explosion, he stood in front of a gym, realizing it was his former training center. The circumstances of how he ended up in this situation and the fact that it even occurred haunted him. He vividly recalled the moment on the battlefield, racked with severe wounds and confronted by an enemy intent on killing him. He was certain his life was about to end. Amidst this chaos, he finds solace, questioning if perhaps he's dreaming. However, his doubts persist due to the vivid realism of his experience. He vividly remembers the torment caused by that unkind individual. His name was Mantis, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Because of his rigid rule, all students at the academy could only be inaugurated by the vice principal himself. Cradling his head, our hero wonders, how did this happen? Engrossed in thoughts of his past, our hero froze with anticipation, oblivious to the group of men approaching him from behind. The man returned, and upon observing the two individuals, he quickly realized that he bore a strong dislike for them. They recognized him as a squad leader who was unfortunately in the wrong place. As soon as the man faced the two odd characters, they immediately recognized him. Both of them were noticeably bizarre. Those two individuals were pleased to see him, knowing they could mock him, particularly the bald one with the snub nose. With a stern expression, he approached our man, hoisting him up. He stood there, staring back with fierce eyes. The bastard gazed at the brilliant snow, leaving it to wonder what he sought after. Without hesitation, the bald man struck the other man with a powerful punch to the chest. Our protagonist was somewhat taken aback by this presentation. A man was propelled 2 meters away from a featherless duck, landing awkwardly on his rear. The bald man smiled at him, apologizing. "Oh, sorry for the tea, my hand just slipped." Leaning over the man, he continued to taunt. "Squad leader, are you flying around the bright snow of the faction while still half asleep?" If he is paying attention, he is observing Captain June Mech from Black Moon. Ducking from the strike of the bald villain, our protagonist cautiously eyed his adversary with a single gaze. Despite the severe stomach pain from the bald man's hit, what's currently happening shocks him even more. After exerting great effort, the hero recognizes the bald Neanderthal from a previous encounter in his life, experiencing a sense of DGCJG vu. In his past, he faced a similar situation. I can predict how he will respond. What will this scoundrel utter next? If you lack skill, you should at least heed these words. This advice echoed in the memory of our protagonist, having originated from the mouth of this bald Neanderthal-like man. Our protagonist is appalled by the situation, not due to what transpired, but because of his inexplicable return. The commander merely observed events, devoid of any humanity. All he could do was label the man as rude. Our protagonist inquired about the overall situation. The commander responded that the Chief Justice had summoned us for a meeting. On detecting an unpleasant odor, it became apparent that the bishop didn't summon anyone to the Supreme Court without a significant reason. A group of unscrupulous individuals relayed this information to him and urged him to depart swiftly. Before he left, the blonde offered some advice. This character said that he was very lucky, with a sly expression on his face. The puzzled expression on our adventurer's face revealed that he still did not understand what it could mean. A group of menacing men walks away from a bald man who laughs at them, realizing he almost disappointed the boyfriend of one of them. The bald man suggests that the commander only progressed so far because he had the support of Jack Moon, despite Moon not holding my same rank. Our protagonist glared resentfully at his adversary. One thought consumed him. If this bald villain crossed his path, he wouldn't hesitate to kill him. Upon noticing his team leaving, he observed peculiar numbers above their heads. 1 plus life, 2 plus lives. He found himself pondering their meaning. Walking down the red carpet towards the bishop, unaware of the experiences that awaited him, he felt a wave of nervous goosebumps pass over his skin as everything began to repeat. He couldn't comprehend what had transpired. Was it a dream? However, he was certain it was reality. But how could this occur? As he approached the door, the man introduced himself as the commander of the flying faction in the bright snow. The gracious host invited him inside. He realized that he had relived all these moments from his past. The incident occurred because he had returned to the time prior to his personal meeting with the Supreme Court's bishop. This was the individual who plotted his demise. Upon entering the room, he encountered an elderly gentleman who introduced himself as Bishop Mattis from the Supreme Court. Observing the elderly man, he deduced that his life's troubles stemmed from this tea connoisseur. He informed the man that he had come to receive instruction from him. However, he realized that he had already lived through this moment and that it would remain unchanged. He looks to the right and sees the current leader of the Holy Deity's court, who was also present in his previous life. The boy comes to understand that the Red Demon Chamber, a city that serves as the primary branch of the Demon Academy, comprises 5 courtyards. Their path is guided by the impressive martial arts skills of Noah as he battles on water amidst demonic flames. Because of his horrific nature, the Lord could annihilate a man to the bone with just one flash, demonstrating a thoughtless act of killing. Even if he is untrustworthy, there are those who still find him disagreeable. Despite his circumstances, he realizes that he has no choice but to obey. The 2 elderly men, engaged in conversation, share that they had earlier identified the boy as Solfia's son, the child of bright snow. Raising a glass of tea to the commander of the holy deity, he acknowledges, "Indeed, he seems as strong as you predicted." However, he responded to the man with an indifferent glance as his greeting was somewhat insincere. They interpreted the man's bent head as a sign of disrespect. At these words, our protagonist paled. He immediately fell to his knees before them, pleading for forgiveness for his insolence. He regretted not showing respect and greeting them as soon as he entered. However, Vladika cautioned the old bald man against being too definitive, advising him not to disregard minor details and avoid putting Vladika in an uncomfortable position. I knelt before these commanders-in-chief, but our hero was at a loss for how to act. He noticed the bishop was slightly overstepping his bounds. Only 4 days earlier, he had instructed him to pay this specific type of reverence to the sun, via a mere nod of the head. Within 5 minutes, the man was instructed to stand up. The man realizes that this game is being played by an elderly person. The cunning old letter gazes at him, merely enjoying the amusement. The elderly man tells the boy that he never considered working as a servant at the academy. The man looked at him, suspecting he was concealing his true identity. Since Vladika had shown considerable interest in demonic art, he decided to take further measures. It was evident to the boy that the old man was enticing him to Cheol Inn, a sanctuary for thousands of clandestine books. The bishop surprised the boy by assigning him a second task. Immediately, memories of his past life in which he was defeated in battle and subsequently died flooded his mind. An elder well-versed in the traditions of the event will send him to the Huangshan mountain clan's outpost. He will instruct him to only select one knife from the arsenal. Perhaps it could be a divine opportunity to return to the moment before his personal encounter with the Supreme Court judge. However, he seemed stuck in a loop, unable to escape this responsibility. Aware of what lay ahead and what fate had in store for him, the man gathered his courage, promising himself never to revert to his past as a suicide bomber. He regarded the two deceivers with confidence, knowing exactly what to say. He requested that they share a few words. He paused momentarily, captivated by the striking sight before him. Before him was a scoreboard from which he could select his next destination. His subsequent actions would greatly depend on this choice. Upon seeing what lay before him, he quickly delved into it as he had limited time to make a decision. However, he realizes that he is unable to move his body during this session. It appears as though time has come to a standstill. The bishop stood motionless before him as time seemed to halt. He was certain it wasn't a dream. He had previously died once and had returned to the past. He noticed a sudden light flashing before his face. He had options to respond with phrases like, "I will execute the order at all costs," or "I want to receive a second order." All the system required of him was to make a choice. In addition, he noted the constant display of numbers, which commenced as soon as the timer started. He realized that as the count reached 0, it was the time for him to select a category. Glancing at the scoreboard, he noticed time had already elapsed and his selected option was to work on his right arm. The text seems quite unclear and may possibly be translated incorrectly. Here is a possible revision, but please note it could dramatically change the original meaning. How does it feel to lose your right-hand man? As for him claiming he'd rather die than follow my orders, well, that certainly didn't make him more appealing to me. All he needed to do was select the second order as if choosing a friend. Suddenly he finds himself back in time, standing before them. "I want to place a second order," he says, startling the older men. This is no joke. Realizing what he had just said, the guy standing in front of them was slightly shocked. The bishop took this statement seriously. The commander of the sacred mountain was also taken aback by the man's behavior. The man covers his mouth and thinks, "Damn." What he relayed to the two elderly gentlemen simply didn't make sense. Enraged by these words, the bishop rose from his chair, despite having not yet given any orders. He angrily kicked the floor as he approached the boy. His anger was immeasurable. His audacity was astounding. How could he possibly ask for a second order? Rage consumed the elderly man as the wine ignited fiercely, as though it could engulf the young boy in flames. Who, in a decisive moment, broke free from this outdated inadequacy? When I glimpsed an insatiable thirst for blood in his eyes. He had only heard tales of the old man's demonic flames, but the bloodlust of the wines was unknown to him. For a moment, you felt a tongue on you. He felt as though a terrible bite pinched his neck. He took control of his situation, realizing that despite appearances, he was facing significant problems. The elderly, crazed bishop, his eyes ablaze with a red-tiered flame, glared at him in fury. The man's neck was increasingly constricting, and the intense pressure made him fear he would suffocate if it persisted. The bishop glared at the man with a venomous stare, demanding that he strangle him. Intriguingly, something begins to spin at the heart of the event, marking the commencement of the second stage. Phase 2 is now underway. Thank you all for viewing this video. If you enjoy this format, we kindly ask that you show your support by liking the video and subscribing to our channel. Let's get started. The master exclaims, "Enough!" The sharp sword was swiftly at the man's side. I hadn't even realized how quickly it had happened. Who she was, where she originated from, and why her blade was perilously close to the festering flesh remained a mystery. He only now realized that had the master not spoken up, she could have beheaded him. He was somewhat reckless in tossing words around in that manner. He had no time to react, only comprehending everything after he lost his head. One of his vassals was assigned the task of guarding the Supreme Court's lord. The composed master took his seat and declared, "I am ready to listen to you now." He was tormented by doubt, unsure whether to spare the boy or to do him harm. After explaining the situation to him, he'll decide what to do with Tim. Upon hearing this, the boy dropped to his knees, pleading with the Lord for understanding. He explained that his request for a second command was not due to his desire to choose one for himself. Rather, it had been a misunderstanding. What then did the Lord of Interest imply? The man recently responded to rumors suggesting that the Huangshan mountain clan is engaging with the Manhwa Recap. Our protagonist comprehended the whims of his mantis master, and ultimately knew his life would be spared if everything proceeded according to the mantis's plan. The man highlighted that Vladika consistently asserts that eliminating the menaces from the Huanshan mountain plan is a solemn obligation. Regardless of how much the man resisted, it failed to influence the owner. However, he persisted and requested his master to allow his team of aerial assassins trained in reconnaissance and surveillance to seize the opportunity. If the overlord provides them with the schedule of the professor's expedition. Thus our hero eagerly joined. After hearing those words, a sly smile spread across Manti's face as he contemplated a fitting punishment for the boy. All he requested from this individual's owner was approval. The commander of the sacred mountain merely chuckled at him. He emphatically asserted that information from the Heavenly Falcon Yard had been leaked to the core, even reaching the ears of a mere squad leader through rumors. The master regarded the boy with utter contempt. The man kneeling realized that things were not unfolding in his favor. It seems as though he's entertained by the Lord, and he would have needed to address this matter regardless. The task wasn't as straightforward as it appeared. Before reconnoitering the location personally cited by the deputy director, they needed to dispatch someone to scout the area beforehand. The Lord assigned him a mission: to explore the land, identify its inhabitants, carefully scrutinize all details, and relay this information to the commander of the airborne assassins. In response to this statement, the man wholeheartedly agreed to comply with the order, regardless of the circumstances. The master freed him and ordered him to proceed on his mission. The man was not concerned about what lay ahead. He was simply grateful to be alive in the present. He observed the Lord's guardian, a beautiful yet perilously dangerous girl. With a stern expression, she escorted the man, fully aware that at her master's command, she could assess his worth. He understood this perfectly. Despite all, the man noticed the mysticism once more. He glanced at the sign above her head indicating she had gained 4 more lives, though he was unsure of its meaning. He stepped into the yard, spotted a stream, and decided to wash his face there. The cold water revitalized his body completely. He sought mental clarity to cease questioning the nonsense happening around him. Despite this, he decided that he should investigate what those symbols were. Gazing into the water, he affirmed that all that was happening to him was indeed reality. Peering into the water, he saw an inscription above, a single coin, his final chance. He ventured into the mountains and observed the house as he strolled along the path. He successfully accomplished the challenging task, exactly as outlined by the master. That ruthless overlord is well aware that nobody returns from this mission. In his previous life, he was mercilessly executed with no chance of retreat. Nevertheless, he accepted this harsh fate with a deep exhale. I gazed at the boundless mountains and wondered, why don't I escape from this place where I am? However, this task won't be simple, which is why he mastered this demonic craft. This energy is negative and malevolent. He cannot easily hide what he failed to do. In any event, it's impossible. The soldiers on Murim's right flank didn't detect this malevolent force. If they escape detection, they will relentlessly hunt him down until his demise. Regardless of where the boy went or what he did, his fate remained unchanged. Regardless of perspective, death was inevitable, and he grasped this fact thoroughly. However, he intended to evade it with every fiber of his being. Looking up from his thoughts, he saw his bald, elderly friend. Sitting on the rocks, he smiled at the boy, finding humor in the fact that the boy had carried out a strict order within the office of a Supreme Court justice. Regardless, he advised the boy to exercise more caution in the future. They didn't comprehend the jokes, and the bald comedian constantly joked, "I must have been talking to myself. You probably caught everything," even though it doesn't matter. The biting cold affected the man, solidifying his distaste for the rascal. Despite it all, he noticed that above the cunning fox, there was a sign that read +1 life. The man didn't find peace of mind. Upon examining it, he realized, since his last chance hangs in the balance, he must make a choice. Whether he will comply with the order and willingly face death. We will discover the second option later when the man approaches the bald individual, gathering his energy. He approached the man and commanded, "Look at me." The bald man pondered why he was approaching me. He thought you wanted to speak, but the man was preoccupied with confirming something. The bald looter was anxious, unable to comprehend the actions or intentions of the approaching man. His anxiety wasn't unfounded as the man was harboring questionable thoughts. For a moment, the tension between them peaked and came to a standstill. The man stood beside the bald marauder, suddenly drew his sword and charged at him directly. Before he could respond, the muscular bald warrior was simply terrified by this fool's actions. He swiftly thwarts the attack before even having a chance to draw his sword from its sheath. The man focused intently on what was right in front of him when a bald man inquired about his activities. The man continued to strike relentlessly, attempting a counterattack to seize control. He skillfully repelled the goblin's defense with his sword. Leaping forward, he moves behind the bald man, preparing to strike a powerful blow to his back. The bald man noticed a severe wound, a deep cut piercing his leg. The protagonist is vindictive, retaining a clear recollection of the harsh words spoken to him by this unpleasant individual. He emphasized that all of his actions were driven by his quest for answers, and his ultimate goal was to gain strength. Regardless, the man did not succeed. After a barrage of punches and attacks, the bald man's defense was nearly collapsing. The man was shoved against the wall, holding on with all his strength. The bald man gripped his sword nervously, his face pale at the sight of the other man's stern demeanor. It filled him with fear. An unexpected attack by an unprepared warrior could turn out to be no game at all. The bald man struggled to convince this irrational individual that his nonsensical behavior and misplaced self-confidence were not ensuring his safety. The man's eyes were bloodshot, and he no longer seemed to care. He charged towards the warrior, completely committed to his actions. He gripped his swords again, burning with rage. The bald man was simply terrified of this man's unpredictable actions. All our hero's actions were not futile, for they ultimately led him here. Now how can he quit? He recollects the time when Yuren Vijay Tant lying on the blood-soaked floor, severely wounded, struggling to find an escape. He didn't want to die. The bald man's counterattack inflicted no harm on the hero. He skillfully recovered from his assault. Engaged in the dance of battle, he swiftly kicks, stuns the bald individual with a powerful punch to the abdomen. The intense pain is overpowering and renders the insolent unconscious. With his sword dropped low, he stands clutching his stomach. With an icy gaze, our hero strides past the arrogant brawler. He notices the inscription +1 hovering above the enemy. He suspects the appearance of these words above his soldiers might offer a means of survival. But if not, it certainly wasn't his merit that granted him an additional advantage in life. Assuming a stance, he straightens his shoulders and focuses on the stroke. The advantage clearly lies with the man, who allows the fox a few words for a farewell. He looks at him, waiting for him to speak. What I'm saying is, if Captain Beetle is aware of this, the man is going to face difficulties. However, it was understood by everyone that only a blackbird would be the witness to it. The man raised his foot and launched into attack. The bald man let out a ruthless scream of pain. Blood splattered across the forest, with only a solitary, mysterious black bird flying overhead during the incident. The sword impaled the bald warrior. It marked the tragic end of the loser's life, the commencement of our hero's grand experiment. The sword dropped to the ground with no enemy in sight. Soon the enemy too collapsed silently. Upon reflection, our protagonist recognizes that he fulfilled his promise, a promise that was carried out on the antagonist's wife. Ultimately, he remains uncertain about the correctness of his decision. However, our hero could not return. What was the punishment for the action carried out? Everything that needed to be done has been completed. The sun bathed the autumn forest in its rays. As a friend, we step in when someone stumbles and drifts away. A man arrives at a lake on a self-crafted boat, discarding the lifeless body of a bald individual, weighted down with a rock. Observing his opponent plunge into the water, he will ascertain later whether he did it correctly or not. Despite this realization, he understands that he has indeed killed Chiksan. Though the words above his head have vanished, our hero remains unaffected. Suddenly, he glanced at the water and saw the reflection of the Covenant's inscriptions above him on the river's surface. He received a final opportunity coin, which impressed him as he was curious about it. The inscription above his head remained unreadable, yet it marked the start of an epic tale. As a friend, I can attest that the intention inscribed on the second coin symbolizes a second chance that belongs to me. This marked the second phase of our study, in which we revisited the commencement of his perilous mission as directed by the Master. His brigade's boat is swiftly navigating past the cliffs along the river. His team, merely a standard reconnaissance group, was determined but not particularly strong. Their primary goal was to survive. While it may sound bizarre, areas of perilous cliffs and deadly threats are actually the most suitable places for inconspicuous transit. Occasionally, our hero pondered over his master's words, a fascinating task of describing the diverse lands, their inhabitants, and meticulous examination of the unfamiliar. Ultimately, he arrived there with a team. He ventured into the absolute depths of hell to gather information. The sole comforting thought was that had he remained at the academy, he would have met his end regardless. After swimming past all obstacles, they arrived at the shore. His team of reconnaissance soldiers disembarked from the boat, and he remained alert, carefully monitoring their every move. After stepping out of the boat, he gazed at the water. He saw an inscription above him, 2 coins in a bargain. The inscription remained. She materialized above the yoga room after the demise of the bald man, yet the guy still hasn't pieced everything together. Suddenly, one of his soldiers summons everyone to the scene. The female commander of the airborne assassins turned towards him. He respectfully acknowledged her presence with a bow and said, "Yes, I am here." She cautioned the young man about the presence of a Huangshan mountain clan in the vicinity and advised him against acting recklessly. Their brigade still needed to estimate the enemy count, assess the terrain, and then return. She noticed the uncertainty in his eyes for a moment and urged him to move quickly. The man noticed that, despite being the captain of a group of airborne assassins, she never communicates directly. He advanced, beckoning his fellow warriors and scouts to follow. The commander of the assassins watched as they vanished on the mission. She recognized that those deployed might not return, considering the stakes involved. The third stage begins. In a snow-covered forest, our team is proceeding with information collection. The commander found himself puzzled by the situation, confronted with questions he hadn't considered in a long time. He either just received an order from his master, or he is now collaborating with him. The brigade pursued their commander, who directed them to follow him to the right. The man noticed their uncertainty and suggested they hasten their pace. Despite understanding the need to turn left, the team was mystified by the commander's decision to do so. They faithfully followed his orders. Reflecting on the past, our protagonist understood that the villains on the Huangshan Mountains had ambushed them previously, as though they had been lying in wait. Drawing from his prior experiences, he resolved not to let his team be blindly led to slaughter like cattle. He reflects on the hardships he encountered along the way. He did not enroll in the academy to end up in such a situation. Second chances are not handed out freely, so what does it signify? He continually pondered the significance of his situation, questioning whether it was truly a second opportunity or potentially his final chance. How to notice the rustling sound again? He raised his hand to stop his team. He spotted a stunning two-story Chinese house amidst the forest. Though unremarkable, this house was decidedly peculiar for the area. Behind him, the team was inducing his nervousness with their incessant trivial questions. "What's your plan, Commander?" Or, "Do you think someone spotted us?" Our hero was wounded when his teammates doubted him at such a crucial moment. Despite everything, he advises them to remain calm, because they missed the designated spot. He'll come over to check if the sounds of whining cause an immediate rush towards him. He abandons his team when he takes the lead. He realizes that the building is most likely an observation post, given how easily an ordinary soldier could defeat him. Additionally, there was another judgment option. The man asserted that if this individual is truly the master of the great energy sword, it would likely result in his death. He hoped that no one would be present. However, what he observed through the window deeply impacted him. I managed to confirm that the house was vacant. Subsequently, he assembled his entire brigade around it. The brigade members were either delighted with his advice, or the issue didn't exist in the first place, sparing them a conflict. However, our hero's mood did not improve even for a moment. He'll determine his next actions, including whether he needs to make a call without the aid of a mount. However, returning to the academy would be foolish because he killed the bald man. The team members began to suspect something amiss among themselves, noting that the commander's behavior was consistently peculiar. This sentiment was unanimous, and a sense of danger subsequently resonated with everyone. A team member suggested quickly surveying the area and reporting back to the squad leader, as the villains could soon return. However, the commander at the front of the line remained silent in response to his subordinate's words, sparking panic as to why he did not reply. However, our hero was unable to respond. He promptly pondered on his possible actions at that instant. A window materialized before him, displaying various options he had to choose from within 10 seconds. The heading read, "The Lies You Choose." The first choice was Pragnik, followed by "We Will Fight." The commander was thrilled by the sight before him. He then realized that the warning was not to be taken lightly. The message indicated imminent danger. Who is the enemy when there is no apparent adversary until they arrive? In the moment when time seemed to freeze, the man had only 10 seconds to consider his options, as he could neither see nor feel the presence of his adversary. Time was rapidly dwindling, requiring him to make a swift decision. Even if the enemy is truly present and he is unable to sense them, they will still survive. If he selects a category, we can resolve the issue through negotiation, accompanying him throughout the process. Time once again revealed new hues, and the commander regained his consciousness. Suddenly, he turned his attention to the bushes and said, "Come out now." The team prepared for the attack and positioned themselves in a defensive circle. However, his words were met with silence and no reactions. Our protagonist sighed, asking, how could they possibly be here? Suddenly, an old man with limitless possibilities appears. He proclaims his capabilities, doesn't he? Despite the team forming a defensive circle, he was at the heart of the action, pushing them aside. The extraordinary abilities of the master left our hero in perpetual astonishment as they continued to surpass his expectations. This wasn't the first time I'd taken communion with an elderly man who was a master of combat training. a swordsman whose sword was in full bloom. Chongmen, the elder of the Huangshan mountain clan. His eyes blazed with red fire, and from his observations he knew he'd been recognized. The boy was petrified, unable to rise at the sight of his school's most formidable adversary. This was Jiang Men, the most dreaded enemy in the Demon Academy, unparalleled in dangerousness. The reason for his presence was troubling the man. Despite everything, they continued their journey south. After reaching their midpoint at night, they moved so far off the grid that their superiors no longer had any control over their orders. How he discovered their presence instilled fear throughout the entire brigade. The master calmly responds, "Isn't this brigade the one that breached his patrol zone? How does the commander comprehend his assigned location and the nature of this uncharted territory?" The master drew his sword, held it firmly, and declared, "I will not waver any longer. I don't know your motive for being here. You're all fiends from the Demon Academy." At this point, he unsheathes his gleaming sword. Our hero had seen something like this before, and though shocked by the events, he knew he couldn't afford a moment's hesitation. Master Tariq brandished his drawn sword and declared, "You will all perish at my hands." Without a doubt, the team realized they were in trouble. The entire team was gripped with fear upon realizing that they didn't have long to live, and no one knew what to do. The man recognized his culpability and surmised that life, inevitably leading to death, would always yield the same outcome regardless of the timing. Despite everything, he grasped the sword in his hand, holding on to hope for a fighting chance. Though his past was uneventful, he always yearned for something greater. The man, not wishing to die, knew that avoiding the battle was his only chance to survive. He commands his men to withdraw from the battlefield. Stage 4 of Heavenly Demon Cultivation. In this instance, no superior strategy exists on the battlefield. The reconnaissance team was confounded. Without hesitation, they followed their commander's order. In an instant, everyone launched off the ground. Irina sprinted away, escaping the gaze of the master, who watched and laughed. The team scattered in different directions, attempting to escape the demon. Our hero led the way, running ahead of everyone else. The master treated their escape as a mere game, merely laughing at their attempts for a moment. Lightning swiftly struck in all directions, impacting all the fleeing individuals, including the commander. The intensity was such that no one dared to comprehend, let alone spare a moment. The blow from the metaphorical sword was ruthless, piercing the commander and leaving him astounded. When he was struck by the mono sword, he didn't notice his body was entirely covered in blood. Despite the short time, the master managed to touch upon everything, and this individual was merely a starter. The demon master's eyes blazed with a bloodthirsty crimson glow. He playfully maneuvered the tip of his sword around his opponent, treating the encounter more like a hunting game than a serious duel. Our hero collapses, awake yet still conscious. The master approaches him and informs him that they are all extremely weak. The individual referred to as the commander is incredibly inept, which is unsurprising. Maintaining his demeanor, the master approached the man and asked, "What should I say?" The man is collapsed on the ground, bleeding profusely, glaring at the pitiless rogue who chose once again to harm his team. He stated to the master, "You've done it again, you must have known about us." The master gave him a curious glance, not comprehending his meaning. With his dying breath, the man utters, "You must have known we were departing, otherwise how could you have located us?" It doesn't make any sense. The master was slightly confused and couldn't comprehend what the man was saying. Hearing these words, he grabbed him by the hair, hoisting up his fading body. He hoisted him up by the hair, locked eyes, and realized that he was privy to some information. His tone then shifted as he asked the man how he had come by his information. How did he ascertain their arrival? The man was in such pain that he couldn't communicate. Finally, he shared his suspicion that the other party knew not only the date, but also the exact time of their arrival, which enabled them to plan the ambush. Upon hearing this, the master, sensing the boy already knew everything, peered sharply into his eyes and urged him to think carefully. Some succeed in life by gaining knowledge, others overcome fools in their path. Everyone enjoys a good jest, akin to a master pulling a man's hair in a playful manner. Without interrupting their conversation, he tells the other that he admires him despite being a demonic cultivator who often defies his superiors. These words resonated with the man because I was aware of the situation and how he discovered it. He began to bleed and wondered, wait, how did this happen? His eyes welled up with tears, tinged red from the strain of grinding his teeth, and his vision cleared. The master gazes at him and asks, "How can you channel demonic energy if you're in tears?" He rises to his feet, saying that you have expressed gratitude towards him. Now he can proceed to hone his skills. He lifts his blade into the air, informing the boy that his time has now come to an end. The stern-looking man gazes at his swords and realizes he is now the commander of the airborne assassins. Requesting the elderly man to cease is profoundly unjust. It is unfair for anyone to perish in such a manner. He pleads with fate for another opportunity, noticing a second coin materialize above his head on the next step. He clenches his teeth, enduring the master's strike before everything momentarily plunges into darkness. He finds himself in unknown waters, where the game offers him the opportunity to resume play. He didn't hesitate. He took his final chance and woke up once more. Before he can fully comprehend the situation, he opens his eyes and is struck by the realization. He could no longer repeat it, and there was no certainty that it wouldn't happen again if he didn't return. The next time, the saved location needs to be loaded. Although there are various methods to preserve it, its life story is the only piece that has been preserved in an unfamiliar format. A biography of Bright Snow, however, is non-existent. All he has is the option to continue. However, when he selects this, the system indicates it cannot proceed due to the lack of a continuation. He examines the system error message. It suggests discontinuity if the enemy's martial arts level surpasses his own, or if the scenario cannot proceed through conversation. However, he finds this unclear. He recalls the mountain elder, Hun Shen Yi, standing before him, declaring him to be a man of 8 capabilities, and acknowledging his mastery of 6 types of martial arts. He also observes a significant detail that captivates him. From an outside perspective, he assesses his combat prowess, categorizing it into 2 distinct strengths: the Divine Demon Sword and the 7 Black Demon Swords. Sweat trickles down his face as he grapples with the statistics of recent events. The system indicates that the enemy cannot be combated using the martial arts technique set to load in the upcoming window. He simply has no other option but to select the category to continue. The error will revert you to the moment prior to your personal encounter with the Supreme Court Justice. A moment later, he woke up in the same spot where he had fallen asleep. He opens his eyes to see the same scene as before. He was previously lying on the bed in the old training room. He was pleased to resume and felt just fine. He was grateful for his luck, but hoped it wasn't merely chance. As he pondered over the survival choice he had recently made, he felt a surge of contentment. With his eyes closed tightly, he contemplates the situation and considers if he can leave everything unchanged. If he remains in his current position, defeat will shortly follow. He already knows the impending events and plans to alter the course that fate has set for him. A couple of minutes later, he hears the sound of at least 2 mockers. Upon arrival, they were dismayed to find him absent, despite their certainty of his presence. He observed closely before leaving, keen to avoid any interaction with those individuals. Then you observe a crucial detail. The man he killed in his past life doesn't display the word life above his head. Assuming such an inscription existed, it would likely limit him to taking the life of the same individual only once. If this is accurate, then he only has 1 life left, 1 final opportunity, which disconcerts him. In a moment, he realizes his chances are depleted. Clenching his fist, he makes a vow to become stronger than he has ever been, no matter the challenges that lie ahead. Despite the numerous challenges this new chapter of life presents, he is certain to prevail. He will grow stronger, overcome his challenges, and vanquish all his rivals. Regardless of the cost, he is prepared to pay any amount to stay alive. Since his life has restarted and surviving is paramount, he simply has no other option. He can't resist the urge to run aimlessly down the street, completely unclothed. Exhausted from her continuous running, she halts to catch her breath, dazed from the relentless pursuit. In a brief moment, he notices a mirror before him. He noticed the head of the coin inscribed with the words, "Last Chance." A bead of nervous sweat trickled down his back. He comprehended everything and simply released it. He was confident, but uncertain if taking a wrong turn might jeopardize another opportunity in life. What should he do now? What if he must confront unstoppable adversaries at every turn? He was in a precarious situation and had to find a resolution. However, he knew of nothing that could make him stronger. He is progressively advancing towards his goal. While the outcome is uncertain, I hold great hope for him. His new life stage begins at age 5. He enters the Lord's chamber, where he is welcomed as the leader of the aerial squadron and acknowledged as a pillar of the community. He informs the Lord, stating, "I have received an order from the predecessor of the Supreme Court." The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court observes him thoughtfully, uncertain why he arrived so swiftly. We must piece together what transpired previously. Surely there is some clue to be found if we retrace the moments before our personal meeting with the court's lord. The man bowed before the lords, unable to escape. The water boy greeted him enthusiastically, together with his bald friend, the commander, who was coincidentally discussing him. For them, he was akin to a performing clown. His absence deprived their lives of entertainment. The circumstance was drastically different from what it once was. The difference between past lifestyles and present ones is significant. Because he was deeply committed to worship, he did not marry. His devotion played a fascinating role in altering his destiny. The bishop inquired, "Zhang-il, as a clerk, what else did you contemplate?" Upon returning from the church, he realizes that the words spoken by Vladika echo what he had previously said to him. He clenches his teeth and concurs with the bishop, regardless of the circumstances. Falling to his knees and pounding his chest, he implores them with great respect, all the while feigning gratitude toward them. "I am expressing my discontent and finding it audacious that someone like me, who is not deemed worthy, is living in such a prestigious city to the Supreme Court." They observed him and presumed their thoughts about him. They valued his principles and intellect, and Vladika contemplated the task. Suddenly, the consul interrupts their thoughts, announcing that it has something to tell them. At this moment, he realizes that he has been eagerly awaiting this very occurrence. Finally, the system presents the event options he has been anticipating. The system presented him with two options. He could either execute any order to receive a new one, or he could work tirelessly. From the moment he uttered those words, time was set in motion, and he was briefly given the chance to select what the system proposed to him. The man was ready. Aware that the initial choice would result in death, he realized he had only one option remaining. His only remaining option was to appoint me as his right-hand man. While it might have seemed illogical, all other alternatives led to a singular fate: death. Then the time came to choose a system. He declared, "I shall exercise my right hand in the presence of the Lord." The man comes to the realization that currently, there aren't any better options. If it's not about work, then who should he challenge? The master was impressed by the boy's uninformed response and inquired about his reasoning. The boy responds, "If I can't escape fate, then I've chosen to take it into my own hands. You've been taking care of me." Because he bravely strived to master martial arts at its highest levels, there was a time when he fearlessly challenged the authority of the Supreme Court's highest official. "That's what I thought," responded the boy, quivering before the palace's master. Hearing all this, the bishop gave the boy a cold stare. The boy, eventually calming down, bowed before his master in repentance, acknowledging that even multiple deaths would not absolve him of all his sins. However, he is determined to demonstrate his loyalty to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court and thereby gain his trust. However, these elderly men found him amusing and stifled their laughter, realizing he was much funnier than they had initially thought. With a snap of his finger, the bishop resolved to assess the sincerity of this man's intentions. After checking with his fingers, the knife slipped near the remorseful boy, who gazed at it with a chilling stare. He appeared desperate after what he said, but there was no going back. The bishop, amused, tossed a sword to the boy. "If your words hold truth," he challenged, "prove it." The man realizes that he needs to do it only once. If he does it just once, he will have a chance at life. Despite the perilous nature of his plan and his seemingly hopeless situation, he grips a knife, brandishing it towards his face, eager to find an escape from his predicament. Without hesitation, he pierces his shoulder, attempting to sever his arm. Blood from his hand splattered across the floor and stained his clothes. He firmly believed he had to amputate his hand to prove his worth and survive. But in an instant, someone wrenches the knife from his hand. The procedure, accompanied by his screams of pain, intensifies the agony even more. The bishop exclaims "cotton wool," symbolizing his disapproval of the boy's absurd idea. The bishop's protector withdraws his knife, distancing himself from the boy, thereby sparing him from a vile act that could have cost him his arm or even his life. The man realizes that he still has one arm left and he feels relieved, but the ordeal isn't over yet. In his previous life, the girl wished him dead. Now she aids him in exercising self-control. Her movements were uniformly paced, and as he watched her, his mind teemed with thoughts of her. Yet, he found her unrecognizable. He had an opportunity to gaze directly into her eyes. He realized that she had prevented him from severing his arm to ensure he wouldn't do it. Observing her, he noticed the inscription above her head: "She possesses 4 lives." However, the absurd idea resulted not in a severed arm for him, but in a hand he could not move. Yet it remained with him. The bishop and his companion sat laughing at these men, having not experienced such amusement in a long time. No one in the academy was foolish enough to take on this task. He's truly eccentric. However, his actions earn him a small reward. Strichchina immediately offered him the position of department head. He assigned the boy the task of going there and making preparations. The boy was thrilled by this development and expressed his gratitude to the bishop for his generous favor. The boy realized he had 3 options, but only one led to salvation. Surprisingly, the most puzzling option proved to be the correct one. Exiting the bishop's office amid his ward's laughter, the boy felt puzzled and impoverished despite the situation. Among all the system's options, there is a way to survive. The man was extremely pleased as he received the answer to his question. Despite our efforts, he will never forget the individuals who mocked and ridiculed him. He vows to cherish their lives and bestow justice upon them in the future. We proceed to Ilya's department, a repository of knowledge that piques everyone's interest. As soon as he entered, they asked for his name. He introduced himself accordingly. A library representative inquired about his age, which was 27, and he disclosed that he had been a fighter pilot for 8 years. A representative from the director's office of this institution relayed a rumor to him that he had selected 12 cities out of 1,000 to establish the organization. 1,000 individuals silently listened to his story. The library director was impressed. He was capable of articulating the truth eloquently. Seeing the high-ranking man unexpectedly filled him with happiness. He never thought he would have such an opportunity. The boy in our desolate town responded apathetically to his punishment, viewing it as his path to redemption. The library head noticed the man's hand was completely immobile, indicating something was amiss. He became frantic about it. He attempted to interject, gesturing with his hand to ask a question, but the interviewer refrained from divulging details about the harrowing event and how his adventurous spirit contributed to his survival. As he strolled through the library, he held some intriguing old books in his hands. However, the master instructed him not to be distracted, urging him to follow because there was a task awaiting him. The task was clearly not self-sustaining and was geared towards its own development. However, the library manager seemed to have a hidden agenda, guiding him towards an unfamiliar location. Proceed down the hallway, past the shelves of books, and continue directly into the dungeon. He took him to a specific place and stated, "From now on, you will work here. You should adhere to the guidelines established in these books." The man was amazed by the vastness of what he observed. He was responsible for maintaining the room's cleanliness and ensuring nothing was damaged. Should damage occur, it would fall entirely on him to accept responsibility. The man disregarded the manager's comments but quickly made it clear that he would not take responsibility for the proposed action. The man indeed wants to respond, but he is unsure of what to say in this situation. His boss has assigned him a task that he considers significant. He moved towards the table stacked with books, emphasizing that the job would involve dealing with size and type. The individual was deeply troubled by the idea that the Supreme Court Bishop and the Court of the Holy Deity might be unaware of certain confidential information. Primarily managed by a librarian and a government agency with ambiguous intentions, the collection primarily comprised of elite martial arts books. Despite this, the individual in question didn't exhibit exceptional skills. As he observed the master at his craft, a thought crossed his mind. What if there existed a book right here revealing how to eliminate him? He then glances at the head symbol and perceives a life superior to yoga. He perceives an opportunity to attain a life coin and wishes to seize this chance. He believes that success in this life could significantly alter his prospects in the next one. As he passed by, he conversed with the library head, who inquired about his progress in martial arts. He calls him by his name while you attempt to divert his attention. The man is gearing up to confront the secretary, motivated by the belief that he has nothing to lose and that a new opportunity is on the horizon. Above the old man, the boy noticed an inscription that read, +1 life. It intrigued him. Even if you're disappointed with your current life, the next one could be far better. He was also intrigued by the secretary's martial arts skills. He attracted his attention by saying his name, prompting him to turn around. Then the man's eyes sparkled with a hint of uncertainty as he resolved to take action. The game commences at stage 6. Mr. Secretary, what task are you currently undertaking in regard to the award-winning book? The man stared at him, triggering a wave of insecurity as he questioned his ability to defeat him. He would have been confident if his injured hand had functioned properly. The secretary gave him an indifferent glance over her shoulder. Suddenly, the man approached him, catching him off guard. The man approached the secretary and plunged a knife into his stomach with one swift motion. My secretary was taken aback by this unexpected development. This despicable individual chose to end his life. He was truly a brute. He observed the man's growing agitation and began to resist his actions. After the strike, the man moved slightly away from the secretary and realized he hadn't wounded the old man severely enough. And if he only has one life, he's like a bald Texan. The elderly man couldn't comprehend why the rogue had attacked him or what his motivations were. The man chooses not to halt, but to swiftly complete his tasks. The longer he delays, the fewer opportunities he will have. Despite his old age and a wound on his side, he can still evade the blows. He perceives his strength as an advantage and notices that the guy's arm is not functioning. He grabs the taller one, attempting to pull him to the ground. Since the man's arm is injured, he cannot resist. Both of them fell to the floor, with the old man evidently holding an advantage over the young boy. realizes that the old man appears to have the upper hand and there's no opportunity to counter him. He observes the old man's actions with trepidation, realizing the man's intention to kill him just as he had once planned. But now the roles are reversed. The old man firmly grabs his shoulder, attempting to carry him. Overwhelmed with exhaustion, he positions his body in a way that restricts movement. He pulls the knife from his right hand and points it at the boy, signaling his intent to seek revenge for the boy's reckless actions. I believe that was the last glimpse of life he saw this season. The elderly man attacks, causing the entire library to be drenched in blood. The man missed his opportunity in life and ventured into the world. Consequently, his impetuous action led to his demise. However, the game reverts him back to his previous save point, where he is standing in front of an old man. Thus, after losing to him, he realizes there's no chance of victory in his current position. He stands behind the elderly gentleman, and upon calling him, the gentleman asks him to state his intentions. Our hero smiled warmly, realizing he now had to devise a new strategy for his survival. Catching the secretary's glance, he draws out a few coins from his pocket, presenting them as a token of his eagerness to work together. This implies that the cold weather is approaching and the secretary's salary is delayed. He only has a few coins in his hand, but this scarcity only reinforces his sincerity. The elderly man regarded him solemnly. The boy had previously surmised that this approach would fail. However, this entertained the secretary. He said it was a pleasure to work with him and assured him that if any issues arose, he should reach out. Using this approach, he not only gained Sol Hui's trust, but also had him willingly provide his name. In return for his kindness, the old man gifted him with invaluable counsel that could lead to his self-preservation. He advised him to avoid drawing attention to himself for his own welfare. If he wishes to survive, he should heed his advice carefully. The boy pondered over his words, struggling to fully comprehend his message. However, the secretary exited the room, hinting that danger was imminent. All that remained for our hero was to acknowledge their fate and strive to persevere in this place as far as possible. To exact revenge on his dinner partners, he must first survive. He started to peruse the scattered books, seeking information on how to vanquish the spirit of the Hong. Time in the library seemed to pass quicker when engaged in an interesting activity. After hours of laborious sorting through an increasing number of books, he would request a break to rest, holding a book in his hands. He briefly examined the book in his hands titled X Core, wondering about its contents. He became fascinated by its meaning, as XX signified movement and core represented depth. As he continued to immerse himself in the book, its epic scope and fascinating content captivated him. He pocketed it, realizing its profound connection to nature. As soon as he receives a notification from the system, he is prompted to choose the type of martial arts he wants to learn. A significant event occurred in his life when the system unexpectedly presented him with a new option. Previously, it had only provided life-saving measures or categories to choose from. Now it gave him the chance to select a type of martial art, which amazed him. He noticed the book beneath him emanating a glowing blue aura. At that moment, time did not halt, and everything continued along with it. He picked up the book, glowing with a blue aura, and read it. It discussed the 3 primary skills. The system restricted his installation, prompting him to select one martial art to master: white glow, fire hands, or unification. However, only the first choice, white glow, was available, while the other 2 remained inaccessible. The man was astounded by the opportunities the system provided, but he acknowledged the existence of martial arts associations, skills possessed solely by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, regarded as the highest form of artistry. The martial art, Fire Hands, gained fame from its encore presentation by the deputy director during his time as an assistant. The individual was bestowed with immense potential. I was pleased to find this book, but there was a significant detail that I didn't comprehend. Why does one of the categories state closed? I would prefer to select white light martial art. The system explained that he couldn't learn this martial art due to an injury that caused his illness. However, since other options have been introduced, nothing will go wrong if he chooses to pursue the art of the martial glow. I'm unsure as to why, but given the fame of the other 2, they should be of equal standing. When prompted to select his preferred technique from the category of white glow art, he was presented with 3 options: swordplay, close combat, or kicking. Given the opportunity to master all skills, he saw no reason for restraint. So, he selected swordplay to begin with. Since he selected this category, a demonstration was expected. The term demonstration signified that an exhibition was due. He was not looking forward to it, but was nonetheless intrigued upon witnessing it for the first time. When he noticed energy swirling before him, gradually forming a shape, he was amazed by the spectacle of a shadow, shaped like a figure wielding a sword. emitting a brilliant glow. The shadow assumed a stance, absorbing the energy emanating from this technique. The system attempted to transfer these possibilities to the man. Suddenly, the figure moved decisively. The system and its model perfectly demonstrated posture and maneuvers. The white steam emitting from the model's mouth visibly demonstrated the breathing technique. Even the position of the sword shadow was perfectly reflected. All he could do was observe. He was shocked because he was unaware of this information and had no means to discover it. In an instant, everything vanished, and the system invited him to showcase his special skills in the glowing martial arts. One was this captivating sword art crafted by an intriguing individual. He also examined the symbols that were unfamiliar to you. While he didn't fully grasp their application based on the instructions, he was confident that he was. He places his shoes aside and walks to the center of the hall, holding your sword, and you see that he has another chance at this opportunity. He confidently prepared to repeat these movements. He couldn't comprehend why he was presented with such incredibly exciting opportunities. Celebrating his commitments together, he was prepared for any challenge. Fate provided him with a survival opportunity, while the system guided him with valuable tips and information to succeed in life. He informed me about the department secretary, Chung Hindu. He realized that mastering the martial art of biolight could enable him to defeat his opponent. He duplicated the moves of the figure standing before him, rigorously testing and training in this technique that revolutionized his life. From that moment, the boy's 7th stage of life begins. The library towered above all the surrounding houses. The library has remained undisturbed for a century. A mouse gnawing on books was startled by some noises. She observed the unfolding event, then suddenly her face was disfigured. Our hero expertly mastered the anticipated technique, slicing through one of the walls. He was thrilled to learn the martial art of white light, which generated tremendous power in a single move. The dent in the wall was considerable in size, resulting from the impact of his formidable punch. He evaluated his achievement, feeling a sense of pride as he had never experienced such strength before. He was flooded with emotions, and his strength was exceptional. Filled with happiness, he persisted in his training. After a month of daily training at this library, he has perfected his skills in this technique. He chose to demonstrate it again. Focus your energy on accumulating aura. He began his impressive technical exercises, and within a month they became widely recognized. Even without his sword, he could strike efficiently with his hand, which was fascinating. The man's strength and technique both improved. The body had lost its physical strength, a feature absent in the past. Previously, he was able to destroy anything in his path single-handedly. Mastering close combat and kicking techniques has become much easier through learning the art of swordsmanship. Regardless of his actions, he could never completely comprehend how to effectively use the sword. He filled in the information as instructed, yet remained unsure what to do with his left hand or which direction to move. In his opinion, it would be beneficial if he could apply this technique. Thanks to his unusual fate, he received something he never had before. He possessed complete information about the secretary and was confident in his ability to outperform him, thereby threatening his position. This concept delighted the man, and he chuckled at the prospect of achieving it. But if the secretary noticed the mess in his workplace, it would surely result in a severe punishment. He decided to tidy his workspace in anticipation of potentially unfavorable feedback from his boss. A monotonous job he was disinclined to perform. The job seemed endless, with neither a beginning nor an end. He selected a book from the pile, deciding to delve into basic skills. Eventually, he set the book aside, realizing she could assist him in understanding its key points. When someone entered the room and began to approach him, a character sneaks up behind him and exclaims, "Wow, there's someone here." The boy was surprised, unable to comprehend or recognize the situation. But upon reflection, he observed an undeniable factor, the fear that had enveloped the boy. This character believed he had something on his face because another individual gave him a peculiar stare. He momentarily recalled the secretary's advice not to stand out among the demons around him. He found himself agreeing with the secretary's words, and indeed he was correct. He noticed a +10 to life floating above his head. The sight of the monstrous creature before him filled him with fear. The man politely responds with a "No, sir," indicating his intent not to overstep or offend. Hearing this, the demon smiles, assuring him there's no need for such caution. You can ask him his name. The man introduced himself as one drenched in sweat, likening his exhaustion to a saltwater pine tree in a humid climate. Recalling the girl who protects the bishop, considering there are only 4 lives and this individual possesses 10. He was unmistakably strong. With a smirk and a husky voice, he asked Solfa, "What brings you here?" The boy informed him that his task was to clean the shelves. The man offered him a lift, commending his excellent job in cleaning and organizing the library mess. However, he requested his permission to ask a question. The gentleman granted me permission to ask him anything. Upon examining one book, he declared its significant value to him, and asked if he had encountered a book titled The Three Main Skills, because he understood the potential risk of losing his life if he took it. He held this book in his hands. Suddenly, time halted, presenting him with a choice of two options, both leading to never. He must make a decision. His life depends on the outcome of the game provided by the system. This decision will determine whether he lives or dies. He compels himself to maintain composure and avoid mistakes, aware that any error could cost him his life instantly. He wonders why he met her in the first place, but it's too late to dwell on it now. He couldn't disclose to the demon that he had learned martial arts from that book, so he was compelled to deny having ever seen it before. However, both of these options were perilous in one scenario, and in the other, you felt that multiple options were incorrect. He was overwhelmed by the choice and unsure of what to do. As time was rapidly depleting, he couldn't afford to choose between them. "I have no other choice," he stated, his voice trembling with nervousness. However, he had no other option. He had to choose the lesser of two evils, and his choice settled on an option he had never encountered in his life, moving the events forward. The demon gazes at him and grins cunningly, eagerly awaiting his response. He casually mentions that he has never met her and offers his apologies. This character observes him and discerns his deception. The man's eyes were calm. The demon turns to search for her at the place he last saw her. The man is hopeful, thinking his plan might have succeeded. He returns to the demon and assures him he will assist in finding her just in case. The man replied that he misplaced it and would appreciate any assistance in locating it. These words pleased the man as he believed he made the correct choice. This individual calmly searches the library for a specific book. Our hero sighed in relief, realizing everything was fine. However, at this juncture, the man regains his composure and remembers to ask one more question that he had forgotten. With his back turned to the boy, he declares that he has discerned her possible location. This question is also interesting to the man who asked it. This man maintains an awkward silence and does not respond to him for a full minute. His gaze blankets everything with a chilling coldness. He returned from the front line and reported that he had seen her in his hands. These words sent chills through the boy, leaving him sweating from embarrassment. In his fright, he realized he had been caught. The demon stands, gazes at the unfortunate man, and approaches him directly. The man reflects on his past mistakes. Fear seized him, immobilizing him as he pondered his fate. Despite it all, this man approached him, maintaining the intrigue. The guy could have fled, but he didn't even start the engine, deeming it inappropriate. He chose to feign ignorance, pretending as though he had no idea what he was discussing. His decision was quite typical. He looked at the book in his hands. He ponders his words, risking appearing foolish. However, the demon staring directly at him bursts into laughter, causing the man to feel discomfort anew. He laughs heartily at the guy, merely enjoying himself. He informs him that he was merely joking and that he was actually being bullied. At that moment, the man was unable to comprehend anything, yet the fear persisted. This man, who introduced himself as Polka, asked, "You mentioned you were new here, right?" He calmly expressed his pleasure in meeting him. He went to search for the book again. Fear and embarrassment persisted in our hero. His laughter, loud and disingenuous, left him questioning his own authenticity. Who is he anyway? Observing him, it seems he is deep in thought. We are still in the library where we are facing a significant issue. Creatures are consuming books, resulting in the loss of invaluable information. The man who initially pretended to assist him in finding the book eventually began conversing with the thugs who had previously searched for the same book. He asked the boy if he had come based on the recommendation of the Supreme Court's bishop. With an ironic tone, Polka says this turn of events is surprising. He asserts that he's not the kind of man who would typically ask others for help. The individual believes that this specific man seeks his agreement and utilizes the term old fool. Plagued by self-doubt, he insists that he treats himself well. However, the individual affirms that he treats you so well that he's rendered your right hand, extremely vital in the martial arts world, useless. Numerous renowned men hit the boy. How does he have such detailed knowledge about the event? The man apologized to him because he had no intention of prying into his life. He was merely curious about the identity of the newly appointed clerk. He reassured that at least he wasn't targeting the neck. The wisdom he shared was that it's better to struggle in reality than to indulge in illusions. He advised him to abandon his request for martial arts training at the academy. However, our hero simply listened and responded with a smile. Despite the man irritating him and his unknown identity, he tolerated being called an old fool by the bishop. Therefore, he must have wielded significant power. He remained agitated and continued talking to the man. "You don't remember," he stated accurately. It's incorrect to recall any member of the younger generation referring to the Supreme Court bishop as an old fool. That's my point. The dialogue grew increasingly captivating, yet he was perplexed by what this man was attempting to communicate and how he seemed to read his thoughts. The boy responded to his questions humbly, unable to even entertain such a thought. The man reassured him, urging him not to feel ashamed, saying there's nothing inappropriate about hypothesizing. After all, speculation is a natural human behavior. A moment later, to the boy's surprise, the man encouraged them to discuss the art of white glow. He is eager to delve deeper into what he has already learned. The idea of how this man discovered that he was using this technique perturbed him. What kind of psychological assault is being inflicted upon him, and what sort of man is testing him? Voices filled with fear, not confidence, were audible. He claimed not to understand why the chicken was behaving so foolishly, yet he moved closer to it. As he walks by, he says, "Is this not the way he reveals his knowledge of the truth?" The man realizes that he struggles to use his right hand without difficulty. The man confidently counters his arguments, insisting that despite his perceived inadequate physique, he can master any martial art. His response is met with dismissive laughter. He approaches him from behind, places his hand on his shoulder and says, "I understand, but you don't need to be so serious." However, he remained unchanged, informing the man that Stephen had misled him with a lie, thereby deceiving him. The man was so anxious and concerned that he was in tears, clearly indicating his worry. He stood behind the boy, who realized that he could be killed at any moment for his lies. Despite all these experiences, it became apparent that he was being deceived, symbolized by the thief's burning hat. The man commanded him to keep working and then walked away. The boy was overjoyed, relieved that the malevolent demon had finally left him. He was so anxious it felt like his heart might burst from his chest. But why doesn't he leave? He's frozen in place as if time has stopped. He then glances to the left and realizes that the game is offering him a choice of options. Each time, the system presented the man with the opportunity to determine his own fate, allotting him ample time to make his decision. Why now, however? The boy started contemplating each option. He had only heard about the disciple of the fourth heavenly demon through rumors. However, he is ranked 30th in the Demon Academy, despite being the best martial artist. And if the individual in front of him is indeed a monster, whether it's a sign of panic or recognizing who is truly standing before him, he will still consume the second option available to him. You cannot select the second option and truthfully declare your mastery of the white glow martial arts, or falsely claim that you've deceived him. VJ both could end poorly. If you chose the third option, he may find it difficult to understand. The remaining choice possibly involves becoming the fourth disciple of the earthly heavenly demon. Suddenly, the scene unfolds. The man turns to him, his eyes sparkling with recognition and appreciation. This isn't a bad turn of events. But what is the puzzle? He asks. The boy admits he doesn't understand. Unfazed, the master continues, "I don't know how you've come to understand, but it doesn't alter anything." Ultimately, this man admits that he's simply an individual who lost his footing in the power struggle. Our hero collapses to his knees, pleading for forgiveness for his disrespectful behavior. Internally, though, he's elated as his response thankfully turned out to be correct. However, if it's true that you couldn't disclose the identity of the Earth Demon, things will then deteriorate beyond precedent. The man, an earthly demon, held no significance to him. He instructed the man to continue with his work. The man sighed in relief, sensing that everything was now working in his favor. He remains lying on the floor, watching him enter. Nevertheless, when time stops, it signifies only one thing. Why has the system provided him another option to end his life? The system gave him two choices: to admit openly that he was learning the martial art of white light through the book he was seeking, or to acknowledge that his situation mirrored mine. Again, options surfaced. He selected options from this category and now must do so again. Gritting his teeth with nerves, he had no other choice. Without hesitation, you must candidly acknowledge that Vadim has become a martial artist of exceptional prowess, akin to white lightning, largely due to the book that he had sought. The narrative continues accordingly. Upon hearing this, the demon responds, "So this is the way it is." Throughout their conversation, he was lying to him. His sincere question revealed that he had indeed been lying to him. The demo's foot swiftly hits the floor. With a sudden motion, he leaves the ground, his hair on end as he moves. He draws his radiant sword, symbolizing his readiness to vanquish the fear and despair that grips the boy from his previous words. He perceives that the virgin is evil. When time halts once more and the system presents a singular choice, it appears our situations aren't too dissimilar. However, what strikes as unusual is the duration was longer than usual. He was poised to kill, his sword aimed at the man when suddenly everything came to a halt. Time froze as the demon locked eyes with him, its intent to kill apparent. Pausing momentarily right next to him, I realized this was no joke. There was no other option, but the seconds seemed to stretch beyond the usual 10. With no alternatives to the proposed choice, it was difficult to gauge the passing of time. Under the effect, the man stared at the demon with an unyielding gaze. He noticed a bright fire in his eyes, signaling his readiness to act. The system presented him with a choice. Despite the limited options, this is what it signified. He wasn't given a choice. He was compelled to select the least favorable option. The timer was already at 490 seconds. However, the countdown proceeded with the numbers it contained as time elapsed, as though it intended to provide time to comprehend the question's meaning. He is anxious, believing there must be a solution to escape his current situation. There's just one obstacle. This issue could be more problematic. Nonetheless, this is the best option for him. All other suppressive measures have been addressed, so this solution should be ideal for him. The timer continued to tick. He had only 350 seconds remaining. Across from him sat a hostile celestial demon. It was his task to persuade this creature, armed only with its textbook of tactics. What to do with the troubling question? However, in stressful situations, you are capable of working significantly faster. In his words, you can discern the indifference of the makeshift authorities. This implies that he is in a situation similar to mine, desiring power above all else, and he comprehends this. Asserting that his steadfast nature can now serve as his strength, it may assist in soothing the anger that was inflicted upon him. Remembering the assassin who ended his life, and his belief that one side gains an advantage by increasing its capabilities, while the other eliminates any fool standing on its path. A representative from the Demon Academy communicates with a member of a different faction. Therefore, the status of the Supreme Lord in the Ta Court is in jeopardy. The persistent thought of exacting revenge on him consumes his mind, leading him to devise a plan. He discovered what Pike had found and acknowledged what he needed to understand. He advises to select this option for it to work. Hence, he revisits this period when he was assaulted by a powerfully built man, but manages to thwart the attacker. His words halted the man, allowing our hero's life to continue. Startled by your statement, the man pauses to inquire about your words. However, our hero cannot reverse his course. He persists in communicating his views, asserting that the Earth's demon was unable to defeat the cohorts of the heavenly demon. Once the demons made their decision, the other disciples had already initiated their quest for an ally. No matter how hard he strived, he found the task challenging. A chilling sword lay beside our protagonist, but the terrestrial demon warned him against altering the topic. He continues to assert his point until even the Earth's demon is compelled to listen to him. Though he could have easily killed him, he was instead surprisingly interested in listening to him. Summoning all his strength, the man implores the Earth demon to elect the Supreme Court's Chief Justice. Upon hearing these words, both the earthbound demon and the Gentiles failed to comprehend his message. The man noticed that the demonstrator's gaze was fixed on the ground and made some adjustments. He knelt before him, declaring that the Supreme Court was the core of the Red Demon's domain. If he secures control of the High Court, it will significantly benefit him. Didn't he find him for that reason? This man became intrigued by his words, prompting a transformation within his soul. The boy remained kneeling, but the Earth demon sheathed his dagger. The man glanced to gauge his reaction. He informs him that the Earth's demon did not arrive here seeking the book on the 3 fundamental skills. If it had, you wouldn't be here anymore. He silently observed and attentively listened as the boy speculated about what might have caused the appearance of the celestial demon. What could have motivated him to engage in conversation with a man standing at the bottom of the stairs? Upon further reflection, he realized that he had arrived here. Rather than asking directly, he sought someone who could inform him about the vulnerabilities of the Supreme Court's Chief Justice. The information greatly intrigued the demon, compelling him to listen to the man attentively. Before that, however, he was questioned about his decision. His only response was that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court had instructed the Aerial Division to carry out reconnaissance. It had been a month since he joined the department, and notably, he was the only one expelled from the faction. Was this a mere coincidence? If it's true that he was responsible for the demise of all the incoming factions in the Demon Land, as rumors and faith suggest, then there would be no reason for him to be here. Even if he arrived by accident, he still would have no reason to engage with this obscure individual. Our protagonist convinces this man that he is extraordinary and destined for a different purpose. The Earth's demon laughed at the words. In response to the various arguments, the Earth Demon chuckled, saying he now comprehended why the old man harbored such disliking towards him. In one way or another, he informs him that he can discuss these weaknesses. The man tilted his head forward and confidently affirmed the truth. The Earth's Demon inquired about his weaknesses, but the boy remained silent. He raises his hands and asserts that you can't just ponder, you must actually voice your thoughts. However, the man stood up, stating that if he informed the individual on the ground about the information he sought, what he receives in return. Upon hearing this suggestion, the Earth Demon cast a chilly gaze at the boy. However, the purpose of all this was unclear to the terrestrial demon, as it seemed like mere trading in his view. However, our hero remained undeterred, stating that he was willing to risk his life if it meant receiving something in return. Such a prospect did not trouble him. The demon of the earth argues that nothing is certain and life holds little value. To this, our hero responds that although he understands that nothing is inherently valuable, if his knowledge can enhance his time and effort, it's worth it. Isn't that enough? The guy asks. The earth demon, considering the potential value in it, turns his back on the man. After considering it, he looks at the boy again and concurs with his perspective, thereby impacting our protagonist. If he indeed possesses such accurate information, he promises to disclose it fully. Our hero has no reason to distrust the words of the earthly demon. He informed him that the Supreme Court's Lord's weakness was Elder Huang Shan. When the earth demon heard this, he regarded him indifferently and queried, "What evidence does he possess?" All he dared to say was that since the information about the Lord of the Supreme Well was only speculative, it didn't much impress the earth demon. However, our protagonist persisted, stating, "Even a simple debt may hold great significance for the earth's demon, a fact he could not dispute." The man explains that numerous graves surround him, and if he were to narrow his investigation to one individual, he wouldn't have enough evidence to substantiate his hypothesis. Many earth demons are capable of telling the truth. It's quite feasible that our hero, kneeling before the earth's demon, shared his conjectures and intelligence, desperately hoping that these words wouldn't lead to his demise. The man responded to all the conspiracy theories with a smile. The boy was gripped by a fear of the ambiguous situation. He couldn't discern whether he had agreed. However, the demon of the earth inquired about his name before approaching him. The man repeated his name, to which he responded, "Allow me to clarify something." Before he can proceed, he must complete an assigned task. What was the role of the intriguing individual? But the earth's demon uttered only one name, Jack. The mission was to eliminate this individual. If he fails to fulfill this task, he won't earn the trust of the people, and he should recognize this. He may align himself with the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, effectively dispelling claims of his non-allegiance. He inquires if he can accomplish it. However, the man responds stating, "It's not about what I can do, but rather what I should do." He admits and concedes that he can do it. He claims to be the commander of the Sol V Aerial Division. The Jackman is certainly going to defeat him, consequently pleasing the spectators on the ground. His words exude confidence, mirroring his mastery. Our hero embarks on a new chapter in his life. He has been assigned a task by the Earth Demon and is currently preparing for his mission. Don your armor and wield your sharpened sword. He confidently leaves the library, towards the goal destined for him by fate. The Earth's Demon awaits him on the 12th floor of the department. The mission's objective is to locate and eliminate the Jukeman. Despite the difficulty of the task, our hero had no doubt in his abilities. The Earth Demon likely believes that our man is incapable of killing the bug. Despite his inferior status compared to the heavenly demon, he is absolutely, "I'm confident that this has reached a new level." His new skill aids his survival despite substantial disadvantages, and the art of white glowing bolsters his confidence. Our hero enters the 10th stage of his life, striding down a brightly lit street in the dead of night. Our protagonist deduces that a man is most vulnerable and can be effortlessly targeted for assassination when he is relaxed, eating, sleeping, or on a date. As he walks, he notices a restroom. The place was a restroom. There is no better place on earth for relaxation than at a spa. The man constantly contemplated about it, resorting to beating him out of boredom, routine, and even when he was unwell. He suddenly begins to strategize his revenge, contemplating how he could kill Juk Meng. This individual has been stationary for an extended period, so you'll need to conceal yourself at his most vulnerable point. He should, absurdly enough, climb into the hole and launch an attack from there. Our protagonist, a toilet brush, endures his grim and distasteful task. To mitigate the foul odor, he adorns a mask, thankful that he only has to undertake this chore once. Regardless of circumstances, he promises himself to persevere, survive, and rise above all adversity. Then he noticed his enemy was approaching. He glances at him, noticing that the contemptible Jackman is punctual as always. As predicted, he consistently opts for the push. A man humorously leaps into a gap in the restroom, relieved to find it devoid of any unpleasant odors. He was fortunate that the dough was likely fresh made on site. He glances upwards, closely taking note of his opponent's actions. Already en route and about to take a break, Jack Moon undresses and settles in, preparing to use the restroom. The man is terrified by this unexpected event, as both his life and clothing depend on the outcome, prompting him to stand on the rack. He believes that doing it once is sufficient. Jake Moon is already seated on the toilet, relaxing. The hero grabs a sword and aims it at his weak point. Suddenly, a floral-scented ingredient fell directly onto his head. As you might have inferred, this unexpected occurrence drove our protagonist to madness. He evades Jack Moon's counterattack, refusing to relinquish his position. He avoids products from Jack Moon. He is relieved to have avoided the collision. He decides to act now. At this juncture, the system abruptly recommends our hero to employ the art of sword fighting. The system alerts him that he has discovered the enemy's vulnerability, offering a chance to inflict significant damage. Unexpectedly, however, our hero's body seizes up and stops moving on its own. By combining moves, you can deliver a powerful strike directly to your opponent's weak point. Jack Moon is an ordinary man. He struggles to comprehend his situation. Looking back, he sees the flame heading directly toward his vulnerability. He couldn't comprehend the situation because he hadn't anticipated such an unusual occurrence in the restroom. However, the potency of the hero's punch was extraordinarily mighty, damaging the fragile restroom. His forceful blow caused destruction, shattering the roof into pieces which flew off to the sides. Our hero was thrilled by the impact he had managed to make. Naturally, Jack Moon was taken aback by the unexpected assault. The force of his retaliation was so powerful that he inflicted 1404 points of damage on his opponent. Clear Snow stood before his adversary, realizing he was in a dire situation. He observed the energy from his sword and was overwhelmed by its immense power. The enemy's health is not depleted, indicating they are not dead. After completing the assignment, I needed to clean up. Of course, it's not every day that one finds oneself stuck in a restroom. Despite being cleaned, the place still carried the scent of our hero's signature fragrance. Gazing at the water, he noticed an inscription overhead that read, 3 coins, a third chance. Its meaning, however, remained unknown. After taking an evening shower, he sat in the field and watched the sunset. He was pleased to know that he successfully completed the task, despite the high cost. Despite this, he chose to check his status because it was unclear how he had utilized it. This shot demonstrates the specialized skill of the white light martial art, highlighting the swordsmanship and precise movements required to master this ability. Though it was abrupt, he didn't comprehend who was pulling his strings or how he was managing it. When he altered the ball's energy, it did not diminish his ability or endurance in any way, if he can utilize the entirety of this incredible resource without any limitations. By realizing this, he can become stronger, and currently he feels happy. Regardless, he continued to struggle with one issue. His right arm was injured and non-functional. His disability rendered his arm useless, and should it become known that he had murdered Jake Moon, his peril would significantly escalate. With such a handicap, it will be challenging for him to gain more strength in this life, and he has no alternative but to establish the foundation for his life. He surmised that even if he revealed everything to the Earth Demon, its trust could still not be fully secured. Our protagonist is not entirely aware of his own motivations. Suddenly, it abruptly launches from the ground. He approaches the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court to report the issue. He arrives at the palace, kneels before the Lord, and announces that the Chan Yin has arrived. He warmly greets the Justice of the Supreme Court, though the Justice was not anticipating his visit and is unsure of his unanticipated arrival. Vladica had already thought he was losing his mind, but he had figured it out. How can he dare to show up at his office? What could he possibly be thinking at that moment? Despite this, he remains perplexed as to why he has an unpleasant odor. Our hero, leaning over the bishop, asserts that he had no choice, contributing to the bishop's confusion. This implies that not only would he have climbed into the toilet, but he also wouldn't have dismissed Jack Moon, the captain of the Black Moon Squad. The bishop was perplexed by the news of Jack Moon's death. In a fit of rage, he radiated a demonic energy. Simultaneously, he puzzled over how he had managed to slay him earlier. The man was hesitant, realizing the severity of his situation. Danger was already looming, leaving him in a state of distress. He felt his breathing growing increasingly difficult under the oppressive presence of the demonic flame. Vladica is interested in recalling whom he previously met. However, our protagonist failed to comprehend his hints and asked, "What do you mean?" However, Vodik showed no interest in this. He firmly grasped his hair, lifted it up, and stated, "Don't roll your eyes at me here. And if he mentions something I hadn't considered, the Lord can claim his life in an instant, for he is truly remarkable." However, our protagonist proclaims that if he is not of higher importance, Then there's something I am concealing from you. Vladika couldn't comprehend how the boy could conceal something from him that he had just spoken. He hasn't encountered such a fool in a long time. Upon discovering that the person genuinely wishes to die, he seems to have lost his mind. The bishop required him to tell the truth. Nevertheless, the man continued his sentence, stating that given the bishop's apparent wish for him not to perish, he briefly mentioned that if you're interested, he would share his vision of the earth demon that led him here. Although untrue, the lie could still ruin him if discovered. He made a decision to reveal crucial information to the bishop. If the bishop claims you assisted him, then I comprehend your reasons for killing Jack Moon. Decides to give the boy an opportunity by inviting him to ask questions. He questioned the elder, informing him that the Earth's demon had inquired about the time and place of their clandestine meeting with Elder John Menno. How will he react, however, if a member of the Demon Academy communicates with someone from a rival faction, an act regarded as betrayal, regardless of the reasons? The bishop stepped 10 meters away from the boy, deep in thought. How could he audaciously inquire about such a matter? He indeed asked. The man responds affirmatively. The bishop poses another question, asking him about a different subject. When you encounter him again after his departure, he questions you about the alleged act of betrayal. Although intended as a psychological maneuver by our hero, it proved insufficiently effective. He quietly suggests to the earthly demon waterer to seriously ponder over this question, urging honesty in his response. The room was quiet yet intriguing. After a while, Bishop mentioned the Yellow Mountain. We had previously agreed to meet there at the start of next month. The man was surprised that the bishop succumbed to his deception. Then our hero spots a system message on the floor. What could it be? There was nothing in that system. At that moment, he received a confidential card from the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. The artifact was extremely valuable, and he was given an opportunity to examine it. Without hesitation, he decided to seize the opportunity. This book's description highlights the cities most frequently visited by the Supreme Court bishop, and also mentions the path to Yellow Mountain, where he first encountered the elder, a meeting that filled the boy with joy. The capabilities of this card paved the way for the creation of a new tool, a nutritional bar made from medicinal herbs, and a secret card, a feature requested by a certain individual. However, the tension escalated as the bishop confronted the challenge. The bishop's eerie voice questioned, "When did the Earth's demon manage to teach you martial arts?" Unable to respond to these words immediately, our hero was still contemplating the news he had received a couple of days ago. The bishop, seemingly staring into space, repeated his question. "When did you establish the department with a yin and a yang?" he asked, referring to the incident that occurred back then. The bishop was incredulous that he had dispatched the boy on such a mission so far back in time. Nonetheless, he maintained his confidence in the boy, provided him with the necessary training, and ultimately authorized him to assassinate Jack Moon. Moreover, he also instructed someone to gather information from the bishop, which turned out to be true. With a quivering voice, our hero responded as follows. The bishop VDJ-TM's hand plunges into his chest, causing blood to spill and flood the room. Our hero recognizes the severity of his circumstances and realizes he doesn't have much time left in life. Reacting with intense fury to those comments, the bishop retorted, "You wretch, you must take me for a fool." The hand that brushed past the boy, penetrating and causing him to bleed profusely. The man questions his existence, noticing that his mouth is bleeding. Why am I here? Why don't I feel anything when I am harmed or when he harms others? And why is he constantly seeking to become stronger? The journey began with one question: why? The question evolved into why I should support those stronger than him, perhaps because I accidentally spilled water in the yard. In a soft, gentle voice, the bishop inquires if you understand why you were defeated. The land's demon refuses to teach martial arts to anyone. He exclusively utilizes the techniques imparted to him by the heavenly demon. Despite bleeding profusely, our hero maintained a smile. His response further infuriated the bishop. As he lay dying, he asked him, "Do you know or not?" He responded with a laugh. "Are you aware of the situation? Apparently, you don't know the entire truth." The bishop's expression altered upon realizing this. He smiled through his pain, declaring triumphantly, "You really did lose to me." The room was filled with the bishop's fury and malevolent energy. He withdraws his hand from the man's body and yells, "Bastard!" The man's body was grotesquely disfigured, with blood saturating the whole room. The bishop's fury towards this rogue remains unabated. The system is filled with bright light before it restarts. The man awakens once more in the room where he underwent his previous training, lying on the same bed where he used to recuperate. He realizes that it has returned. He firmly squeezes his hand, rejoicing in its health and strength. He apparently has only 2 lives remaining. He examines the system display, revealing his status. When he notices her, he gazes at her intensely. The system indicated he was in a normal physical condition, with his skills, status, and attack unchanged and no new interpretations from before. He thoughtfully examines the information, uncertain whether his unaffected arm, health, and stamina are the reasons, or if the white light martial art is simply unavailable. Although you may not recall this technique, each movement is embedded in his memory, even if it doesn't seem so. Upon acquiring the martial art of white light, this system integrates you. Additionally, your skills are upgraded. Eventually, the user realizes that accomplishing these skills allows them to be transferred into his next life. He also included tools from his previous life, such as herbal medicine, a nutrient bar, and a map, although he doesn't yet fully understand their utilization. Opens the card. How he obtained a card that became priceless to him. He was elated to discover such findings, relishing in the convenience it brought. He unfurls the map and attempts to decipher it. He found valuable information within the book, including a map of the Yellow Mountain that the bishop had mentioned. The other contents pertain to medicinal herbs, common plants that thrive in various conditions and have health benefits. Upon identifying the item as a nutritional bar, he selects this category and the bar appears in his hands. He is surprised to behold this object in his hands, having never encountered it in his life before. He tastes the bar without any hesitation. He is simply astounded by its flavor, having never tasted such a delicacy before. It was incredibly delicious with an amazing taste. The most significant effect of the bar was the restoration of his health by 1 unit. If he consumed it entirely, his health would increase to 3 units. He further analyzed the system, contemplating returning the bar to preserve it. However, the system offered him this opportunity. He insisted on returning the object, ensuring it didn't disappear from his hands. In this way, he retains this tool for future use, bringing him immense joy in the present moment. He didn't have much time and quickly moved forward to start a new life. He rushes to his former office on the 12th floor. The Earth's demon was waiting for him, requesting an audience and introducing himself by name. A bit anxious about the answer awaiting him, when asked who you are and what your discussion is about, he informed the demon that he was a low-ranking commander from the Supreme Court. As his position did not fall under any specific unit, his division was referred to as the Flying Faction. The demon heeds his words and asks, "Then why do you require my assistance?" The man responds, implying he possesses information critical for the demon should he aspire to rise as a new leader. He needs to open the door. After much thought, the Earth's demon invited him inside. He's embracing new opportunities, symbolizing progress rather than stagnation. The Earth demon stands before him, but he hasn't fully formulated what he wants to say. Tell him he's funny without making him feel like a fool. Since the man's life was restarted, he had to begin anew. The earthly demon didn't recognize him, failing to provide any information about his past or what it could potentially offer. Sighing, the man recognizes the absurdity of the entire situation. However, he possesses the evidence, and this object could potentially offer him an opportunity. He opens it, hands it to the Earth's demon, and says, "Here it is." The demon, unable to quell his curiosity, inquires about the mysterious object. Our hero responds, "Read it and you shall understand it all." The Earth's demon is observing, yet he struggles to comprehend the man's motive. He accepts all the information by opening this card, and recognizes the validity and truthfulness of this information, which presents new opportunities. He is astounded by the sight and acknowledges its truth. The tone of voice alters as the situation approaches a climax. To validate his credentials, our protagonist. However, the Earth's demon responds with what he values most in life. He pledges his loyalty, claiming that his life as a subordinate squad leader is dedicated to serving the Earth's demon. Observing this man, the Earth demon fails to fully grasp his intentions. This adventurer intends to, "I simply want to communicate to him that our protagonist aspires to gain greater strength. His sole motivation is to become stronger than anyone else." The Earth's demon quietly approaches the boy. He walks silently. The Earth demon approached him closely. Holding the map, he asserts that if this information is accurate, then the man achieves everything he desires. We proceed to the library where he abandoned the boy. The Earth demon departed to verify the information, leaving the boy in anxious anticipation. Despite the long wait, he could not relax, remaining hopeful that things would turn out well. Despite holding the highest position at the Demon Academy, his anxiety did not abate. Whether he was within the confines of the temple, in the courtyard, or secluded in his chamber, he struggled to fully comprehend the intricate political relations amongst the different factions. The boy only knows this about the Earth Demon. He is not the Supreme Court's lord, but the inaugural member of the Blood Demon group. 4 hours have elapsed, and the Earth's demon returns to him. He approaches him and says, "You mentioned your name." However, our hero is not at peace, as he is consumed by thoughts of what he will encounter in his next life. After these actions, the system enables him to save the current process and store it in a specific location. A noteworthy question is, why does the system suddenly generate a report? The 95 heavenly demons of the earth grant 3 lives, a process that is safeguarded. When confronted with the earth demon, the system provides you with 3 potential response options. Time halts, presenting the man with several distinct choices. He could choose to connect with the world around him in his own unique way, opt for the second choice and become a consultant to Earth's demon, or gravitate towards the third option. These robotic options leave a strong impression on our hero, as he has not yet encountered them. Each of these options will result in a totally different life. The symbol for each option represents its complexity. Each of these options is distinguished by its level of difficulty and how it shapes life's progression. Our hero is presented with 3 options that will determine his fate before the Earth's demon. The first option is to become the supreme demon of Earth. The second option is to serve as the Earth demon's advisor. The third and final option is to become the secret swordsman of Earth. It is on Earth where he stands before this demon, poised to take command of his destiny. He deliberated over each option. If he selected the first one, he would join the army. In the military academy, a training city directly overseen by the primary forces, potential is nurtured. Every year, approximately 3% of the cadets graduate successfully. Although our hero can improve his endurance skills, this doesn't ensure his survival. If he becomes an advisor to a demon at the academy, it would certainly enhance his skills. However, his second challenge would be to contain his aggressive nature, a feat more challenging if he is physically impaired. His final task is to become a clandestine swordsman, which entails killing someone without revealing his actions. This task is immensely complex and understandably concerns him, yet if he succeeds, he would have the chance to eliminate the Supreme Court's ruler. In order to prepare for this, he must strategize appropriately and fortify his strength. The decision was challenging for the man, but he consulted with his family to select the optimal choice. He chose the easiest option, to become the chief warrior of the Earth Demon. The Earth Demon commended his version, as it was rather impressive. Our hero's sole focus was survival. Every decision and action hinged on this crucial need. Given another life, he had the potential to alter everything. The Earth's demon informed him that only a few days remained for army enlistment. He promised to speak with the first-floor secretary. He instructed the boy to wait in the warehouse basement until he had sorted everything out. Our hero expressed gratitude towards the Earth's demon, reassuring him there's no need for concern. He stressed the details he needed to impart to the boy in order for him to survive and prepare. The library has a book detailing 3 basic combat techniques that he might find useful. This moment was significant to our protagonist, who later in his life fondly remembered how he had approached and inquired about the book. If he emphasizes the book's usefulness, it is highly likely that the man was eager to listen. The Earth's demon commanded thorough preparation for the ensuing 6 days. The man had no choice but to heed his superior. Regardless, this dramatically altered his circumstances and breathed new life into him, offering a fresh chance at survival that he justly deserved. Engaging in a dialogue with our inner demons, he rushes to the basement in pursuit of the valuable knowledge he desperately needs. He now officially has permission to read a book on the 3 skills. Hopefully, he will have mastered them by then. Since he's now in excellent physical condition, he can learn the 2 martial arts that were previously inaccessible to him due to an arm injury. Before long, he eagerly descended to the department basement to master the fire hand martial art and the unification martial art. Before he could begin his studies, he had to clear the flood of books that had accumulated in the library. His eyes sparkled with newfound possibilities upon discovering the luminous book that opened up fresh opportunities. Legends were told about certain martial arts. For instance, the fire hand martial art dominated the square and the deputy. Another example was the martial art that merged water with Supreme Court leadership. Now the doors have opened to these martial arts. This time there are no alternatives, due solely to the fact that martial arts should be exclusively hand-based. Without delay, he initiates the demonstration of these techniques. He is delighted to observe this striking shadow, which is unveiling new techniques to him. As his friend, I witnessed the yellow flames. The demonstration shadow employs this technique, showcasing it to our protagonist and authenticating everything within the room. She directs her hands ablaze with bright, sparkling fire. Whenever she directs her flame, everything around it beautifully illuminates. It's an impressive trick. This simply astounds our hero, as he has never seen anything like it before. However, the sense of power and his ability to exercise it profoundly motivate him. Nonetheless, the martial art known as Fire Hand is a peculiar and destructive power, while the subsequent one is the martial art of harmonizing with the harsh peak. This martial arts style is prevalent in the academy, primarily because it was practiced by a Supreme Court justice. This power discipline has garnered fame owing to its association with his past life, a time when he couldn't harness such strength. A demonstrator appears before him, using a laser beam to pierce the library wall, thereby showcasing the immense power of this strike. The man is immensely delighted with these water tricks and is gradually mastering them. Following the demonstration, he was eager to learn. He will be training for the next 6 days. Without laying down his sword or succumbing to sleep, he is tirelessly committed to enhancing his strength. In this life, everything is aligning in his favor. He realizes that this place's potent energy can propel him to new heights. Each of his lives presents him with something new, and this particular one bestowed upon him unfathomable martial arts capabilities that he had never even dreamed of. A brief time had passed when he mastered all 3 martial arts disciplines. However, he couldn't match Shadow's skill level. He attributed this disparity to a lack of stamina, believing that with increased endurance, he could utilize these techniques effectively. Despite occasional setbacks, he persistently trained, enhancing his strength to carry a sword on his shoulders. 6 days quickly passed and it was time for enlistment. The man stood nervously in the library's basement. He observed someone entering the room and initially mistook them for an earth demon, but he was mistaken. He informed this individual that he had completed his training. A man with a grave expression entered the room, introduced himself, and asked for confirmation of his identity. A guardian, Ka Won-hee, clarified to the boy that he was sent by the Earth's demon to accompany him. The man was pleased to encounter the demonstrator on site, but he hadn't anticipated being introduced to a product he was previously unfamiliar with. This miraculous pill, akin to an elixir of immortality, holistically enhances the body. Its effect is so potent that it's as if you diligently worked on improving your condition for 10 solid years. Despite claims that one cycle provides exactly 60 hours of experience, applying this to a context of 3 years suggests that a decade truly offers a substantial amount of time. The man was puzzled by the gift and asked how I could accept such a hefty price. The soldier advised him not to reject it if it was necessary, as accepting help was essential for survival in the military. He takes a pill from a warrior, consumes it, and suddenly his abilities increase. Health is enhanced by 85, while endurance is boosted by up to 2,000. This significant and positive impact is impossible to ignore, as the resulting energy visibly surrounds him with an aura. The situation significantly affected him, as his health didn't improve considerably, but his stamina increased dramatically, elevating by as many as 2,000 positions. In addition to gaining stamina, he acquired a passive skill that enabled him to read minds and access chat statuses of individuals from the city of Mariah. The reason for his newly acquired skill remained a mystery. Perhaps it was due to resilience, but considering his present circumstances, it was unclear. He made a decision, consulted his navigator, and observed Ko-1. As a seasoned convoy warrior, his physical condition upon landing was healthy without any apparent harm. Upon closer inspection, however, he discovered that he was unable to view video footage. He perceived a significant danger to his well-being. Given that the envoy from the demo on the ground harbored 77% hostility towards him, and the danger scale was exceptionally high, he became aware of his double agent status and realized his identity as a spy as well. Despite this, he had to follow it because it led to the enlistment site. Our protagonist was perplexed about the 77% hostility he perceived. He couldn't comprehend when they had managed to infiltrate his ranks with a spy. Though he struggled to believe it, he knew that facts were undeniable. If the information was accurate, he would gain an advantage over the Earth's demon. Yet a lingering doubt suggested the possibility of untruth, compelling him to verify it. He observed the demonic messenger on the ground attentively, yet skillfully concealed any indication of doing so. Silently, he guided him to the destination. They arrived at a dense forest after a month-long journey. The warrior pointed ahead to a large structure. Once he directed him to his destination, he stated that it was time for him to depart. Then he commenced his mission. However, the boy somehow suspected his warrior of having ill intentions and thus did not please him. He glanced towards the warrior, pondering the possibility of a recurring event. However, the system left him with no time for speculation, as time itself came to a halt. He examined the proposed option of administering another flying dragon pill. He was uncertain whether he should give him an extra dose, considering he had already provided one. This non-verbal response was a novelty for him, not conveyed through words but behavior. At times, the system did not provide the level of reflection I desired. The man opts not to share any information, allowing the situation to persist. The warrior, confused about the man's intentions, turned to him and asked, "What are you saying?" With a tone of confidence, our hero asks, "Don't you have something to tell me?" The subordinate on the ground was seriously looking at him, clearly indicating his intent to kill him immediately. The warrior's intense gaze landed on our hero, who failed to comprehend his meaning. However, the man didn't decelerate, instead informing him that he was merely confused. The confusion perturbed the messenger of the Earth Warrior, leading him to question the reason behind it. He responded, "Educated and skilled individuals enlist in the army for training. The adversary should understand my capabilities." The pill he offered demonstrated the difficulty I would face surviving in the city. Is it true that I could survive there solely by increasing my energy? The Earth Demon's messenger's icy stare did not promise any intriguing information. They tumbled onto each other, but communication was hampered as they could only speculate on what the man had asked. The warrior, dispatched by the Earth Demon and leaner than the boy, mumbled something under his breath. Relying solely on a pill will certainly not be easy for a man. Yet he handed him a sword, saying, "Take this." Our hero was taken by surprise when he received a short sword as an unexpected gift. This had the effect of giving the user an extraordinary feeling of euphoria. Our protagonist was not only pleased but also profoundly impressed. Well, it was not merely a single gift, but crucial advice for the individual. He learned that only select individuals chosen by the authorities enter the army. Nonetheless, once in the army, one acquires diverse knowledge through missions and prohibited books. If the Earth Demon believed he couldn't manage, he wouldn't have dispatched him there. Because of this, the messenger responded with irritation, asserting that he should be thanked for his faith in the boy's abilities. The boy comprehended the warrior's hint and approached the army's entry gate. He examined the inscriptions on the vast facade of the building, feeling slightly overwhelmed. He enters the room and ascends the stairs. He is holding a newly given sword. Although he suspected the messenger of treason, he felt it prudent to conceal the sword. In the event of an escalation, possession of such a potent weapon could provoke others to seize it from him. Wielding this beautiful sword, he utilized his system's capabilities and returned the sword directly to the toolbox where it had previously been stored. The sword and the carrot were placed in the toolkit, completing the task. We needed to proceed regardless of the circumstances. Upon entering Notre Dame, he recognizes an old, bald man he had previously seen as a teacher. He was slightly nervous about the unexpected meeting with him. Despite it all, he was one of the instructors who oversaw all the exams. He holds a rank just below the Supreme Court Justice. Moreover, the individuals appointed as instructors are not of the lowest rank within the academy. Upon entering, the instructor inquired about his name. The man confirmed that it was indeed his name. He carefully observed the side of the instructor's desk. Upon seeing the bamboo sticks, he didn't have to wait long before the instructor offered him a choice among 4. Each bamboo stick was marked with hieroglyphics signifying either eloquent writing or judgment. Our hero believed that his test would pivot on his choice of stick. Considering his options, he reasoned that it likely pertains more to physicality. Beauty implies extensive conversation, writing suggests copious expression through words, and judgment necessitates making decisions. We were short on time and had to select 1 out of 4 options. The individual saw no reason to deliberate, so he chose the first option that presented itself. The instructor grabs the entire bamboo stick, throwing it into his hands, and declares, upon receiving the bamboo cane, he declared he needed to gather 6 additional MacBooks with the same inscription within 1 day. Successfully doing so by tomorrow would guarantee his enlistment in the army. After hearing this information, the man was slightly perturbed, as it didn't take long for me to understand, informing the instructor that one will exit and re-enter through the same door, following behind them. Understanding that a great deal lies behind this trust, he anticipates everything from forbidden books to treasures and weapons. Despite this restriction, he can still make any choice he desires. The order was clear and concise, leaving no room for hesitation. He promptly opened the door. As soon as he began moving confidently, the instructor noticed something about him. He turned to face it, doubtful of his survival. However, our hero swiftly journeyed with Shalom towards new adventures. He understood he was not the only player with the same task, and had to eliminate the competition for bamboo. The term takeaway had an alluring sound to it, yet it bore the grim meaning of kill them. Peering out the door, he observes a brilliant light juxtaposed against a dense forest. The beautiful weather paved the way for new adventures. The first obstacle he encountered was a large building. It appeared to be a lookout post. The building's size impressed him, making him realize that it was only the first. The more he explores, the greater his chances of discovering something useful and intriguing. Naturally, this implies that the city's status is improving. To achieve his needs, he must make extraordinary efforts. He must remember, regardless of circumstances, to survive and continually grow stronger. Surveying his surroundings, he noted the striking quiet and thought he arrived too soon, and feared he might never see. As he focused his gaze on the tower's peak, he realized that was his destination. He should not hide in the bushes, but instead survey the interior of this building. You need to move quickly to avoid getting caught. After mastering the techniques, his movement speed improved significantly, leaving only a trace of dust as he left the ground. He quickly reached the building and was already at its wall. He paused for reconnaissance and became slightly concerned. With his back against the wall, he began assessing his surroundings. He knew this land was fraught with danger at every inch. It's fortunate to even walk 10 meters without being noticed. However, he is swiftly confronted with a new warning from the system. An unidentified adversary has unearthed the vulnerabilities of his city. He now needs to consider viable options for action. The sudden warning from the stranger troubled him. He was perplexed as to how the man had managed to uncover a vulnerability in such a short time. He had a mere 9 seconds to make a decision: confront the rogue or flee from him. In this situation, he received a message absolving him of blame, which led him to choose flight. As friends, we continued to navigate the situation, allowing time to unfold. Without hesitation, you sprung from your spot, darting forward with lightning speed to avoid a collision. You knew nothing about the stranger and didn't want to risk a confrontation. He leapt high over the house's roof and came to a realization. After selecting a category, his body moved automatically. Reflecting back, he noticed a vivid lightning bolt. At first, he didn't understand, but it soon became clear that it was a counterattack. Despite his attempt to steer clear of the conflict, he failed and was directly struck in the back by the energy blast. He collapsed, coughing, and realized he had been shot. Once on the ground, there was little time to think. Even worse, now injured and bleeding profusely. However, the gravest concern was that the miscreant was behind him, poised to deliver a vicious strike. But he ventured into the garden, unwilling to kill him before being noticed. Our protagonist surveyed his opponent, noting that the enemy had superior health and was in normal physical condition. Our hero's strength undoubtedly lay in endurance. However, one swift strike from the enemy depleted his 100 life points, quickly turning the advantage against him. With a wounded shoulder, our hero stands firm, eyeing his adversary. He realized things weren't going well when a stab in the back resulted in a loss of 102 health points. He was relieved to have escaped serious injuries, despite his wound being more than minor, allowing him still to fight. His opponent, sporting a terrible hairstyle, suggested that they should start a fight without delay. Our hero unsheathes his sword, echoing the sentiment as well. He wasn't aware of his opponent's strength, yet he knew his own stamina was significantly lower. Still, this didn't cause him any fear. His opponent, attempting to provoke him, gestured tauntingly with his fingers and urged him to attack. Our hero's confidence swells as he realizes his capacity to manage his adversary. His speed, incomparably fast, propels him into an immediate attack. A powerful blow struck the enemy, leaving him stunned by the unexpected attack. His opponent, notable for his poor hairstyle, perceived the white cold as a symbol for the martial art of white lightning. The breath from our hero turned cold. The chilling cold seemed to impede the opponent's movements, sparking within him a desperate realization. He was about to be struck down. With the speed of lightning, our hero drives his sword through the enemy's body. Unbeknownst to him, the man with yellow hair loses his advantage. From the impact of the pristine snow, he plunges directly into the abyss. A swift, high-quality strike eliminated a defiant opponent. The enemy was split in two, their blood immediately staining the path. The man realizes he shouldn't squander this opportunity by consuming energy drinks, although it has not yet achieved the capability to imitate with much greater speed and strength. As he adjusted his collar, he realized that he wasn't as weak as before. His superpower allowed him to perceive the extent of his health and stamina decline. This realization made him acutely aware of his mortality, leaving him unsure whether to interpret it as a boon or a bane. While examining his enemy's corpse, he discovered a bamboo piece inscribed with tuishe. Everything was as he had anticipated, but he found one additional discovery particularly valuable. He received a golden tincture, a unique blend that heals wounds. The gift brought him joy during his difficult situation. To heal his wounds, he sought refuge in a serene building. He bandaged his bleeding wound to halt the blood flow. He sat down, catching his breath from the battle, trying to comprehend what was happening to him. He noticed his health deteriorating significantly, but the upside was that he was able to determine bleeding. Despite it just being the start, he recognized that if he persisted in this manner, he could indeed lose his life. He should utilize the golden tincture, but due to the circumstances, caution is advised as its effectiveness may be minimal. His primary objective before his demise is to ensure those wrongdoers meet their end. Upon reflection and examination of the inventory, he observes another intriguing aspect. He possessed medicinal herbs and knew how to use them. He selects this inventory and experiences a surge of energy and health in his body. It not only halted the bleeding, but also improved his health. He began to feel better after using it. He noticed an important detail as he looked at the floor. More specifically, you noticed the screws on the wall upon closer inspection. Of his old adversary who had always treated him poorly, he quietly rises to his feet and approaches him. He glances inside and observes a man. He was a Choko, a long-standing adversary of his lord. Among the 7 divisions of the Supreme Court, he was one. Having just defeated his enemy, he was now in search of him. Upon searching his enemy, he discovered a bottle of alcohol. As the commander of the Black Fire Unit, this character had lost significant strength and blood after the battle. Therefore, he could not be judged as an ordinary man. This commander, under state control, demonstrates his profound satisfaction with the armor. The man recognized that his skills far surpassed the others. He knew that if he were to kill him, it would have to be accomplished in a single strike. Subsequently, our protagonist recalls the prophecy foretelling that he will defeat Jackman. He identifies the perfect opportunity when he discovers a vulnerable enemy city. His plan is to catch his adversary off guard, possibly even in such an unguarded moment as when he is using the restroom. He then realized that he didn't know how to contact him. It was clear that his adversary was distracted. This activation of the window presented a wonderful opportunity. Would we need to wait for another such chance? Clutching the armor, the commander reveled in his unique possession. However, our hero, nursing a grave wound, realized he could no longer afford to wait. During the attack, you notice that the system window is illuminated, prompting you to initiate an attack. The player is offered categories to attack the enemy, such as using martial arts or an object. This presents a novel option that the player hasn't encountered before. As usual, there wasn't much time to select an individual. While he opts for an understandable and safe approach, I choose to attack, causing the script to revert by 3 seconds. This was a novel experience for our hero, as time reversed for 3 seconds. During the instance when my adversary declared, I believed I was the sole possessor of such armor. Our hero stands behind his adversary, poised to attack immediately. He understood the situation. The enemy's hands were entangled in his bib, rendering him completely helpless. The bright snow is quickly melting from the ground. He charges towards the enemy, aiming to deliver a lethal blow. The perfect moment arises when his hands are embedded in the enemy's chest. The enemy is completely unprepared for this turn of events. Our hero confidently rushes forward to deliver a powerful strike. He executes the punch flawlessly, intentionally striking his opponent. Unaware of what is transpiring around him, his smile remains unbroken. Our hero vanquishes a new foe, who is banished to hell along with a gingerbread man, eliminating another squad leader and inflicting triple the damage to his health. Our hero savored another victory, each triumph boosting his confidence. On this battlefield, he can defeat opponents far stronger than himself. He searched the Choko commander's body and found only 5 bamboo pieces. He also had a fondness for items like a celestial silver breastplate, a dagger imbued with a lunar scent, and 3 golden tinctures. Moreover, he possessed an antidote for the iron-inflicted blood condition that plagued our protagonist. The toolkit has been transitioned into a more engaging format. Our hero now possesses more items, enhancing his strength. Now that he has many more items, he uses the golden tincture to enhance his health in every aspect. When our hero selects an object he admires, the changes occur immediately. The result was remarkable. He is now free from pain and his wound has completely healed. He also discovered a fascinating item, a celestial silver breastplate, and realized he could immediately equip it. He presses on the object, and the bib instantly materializes on his body. It doesn't simply equip you instantly, it appears to render the armor invisible. He understands that these tools are not merely sacramental blessings, but divine gifts from God. Unexpectedly, our hero receives a warning from the system. An unknown enemy has discovered his hidden location and he needs to take action. The man recognizes the danger he's in, yet his happiness seems to overwhelm him, causing complete relaxation that is unadvisable in such a risky environment. He had 3 potential strategies to develop for this scenario. Requesting his opponent to attack him was an unwise idea, especially when he didn't even know who his opponent was. It would be too impulsive and immature. If he attempts to flee as he did previously, he could be swiftly injured. He decides to pursue the option of driving him away. At this juncture, the enemy's location might become apparent, necessitating caution. As soon as time resumed its course, he squared the shoulders of his vanquished foe, standing above the lifeless body of his conquered adversary. Then momentarily, he senses an unseen adversary attacking him from behind. Zanadska turns his head to the side, spotting a bright light approaching him. A powerful surge of unknown energy struck his armor directly. The force of the blow propelled him several meters away, demonstrating its immense scale. It's worth mentioning that the protagonist wasn't a weak individual either. Upon landing, he quickly realized that a swift enemy attack had nearly cost him his life. Somehow he recovers from the blow and starts coughing up blood. Examining his statistics, he realizes his health has declined from 205 to 39. Our hero isn't performing well. Stopping such a swift attack was extremely difficult. He was closer than anticipated. Had he chosen to flee, it would have resulted in his death. Had he chosen to attack first, he certainly would have been defeated. Compared to other options, driving him away only reveals his adversary's location. Luckily, he is wearing a chest protector. "Did my strike falter so much that my sword didn't even pierce you?" the enemy taunted our hero. He assumed the boy must have been wearing protective gear, as his survival otherwise seemed unlikely. The enemy confronting our hero was far more powerful than he had anticipated. His health status was an impressive 4,000, and his endurance was 3 times that of our hero's. He served as a commander in the Heavenly Darkness unit from the Red Demon's chamber and had vanquished every adversary he previously faced. He confidently approaches our injured individual. The confident smirk of his character, radiating immense energy, reflected his high status. Regardless of whether they had eaten lunch, none of the enemies our hero previously faced could have defeated him. However, he could not comprehend why such a formidable hero only had 1 life. Recovering from the setback, our team sought to devise a strategy for victory. But this commander states that without needing to be asked to leave, his demise is still inevitable. The boy, breathing heavily, informs him that he is already dying. He also strived in his life against the persistent injustice that awaited him. The commander, worried, approached him as he muttered something under his breath. However, our hero simply smiled, looked him directly in the eye, and declared that it was all nonsense. He was prepared to die and be reborn repeatedly, despite his best efforts to stay alive. He once believed he had a chance, demonstrating remarkable strength on his journey. It seemed almost unfair. However, upon seeing this, the commander expressed his deep sympathy, commenting on his troubled circumstances just before he passed away. However, our hero refused to surrender so easily. He was consumed by frenzy, understanding that he might face death. He'll resist for as long as he can. Summoning the last of his strength, he launches an attack against the enemy. He unleashes the power of the white glow martial art, directing its energy towards his adversary. The commander was unfazed by the insult. He was unconcerned with the man's delusions, knowing he was far stronger. He effortlessly parried the light strike with his massive sword. Our hero assumed he could easily win, but it was not the case. The collision of 2 massive forces resulted in an explosion. An explosion of light energy hurled the 2 opponents into different directions. An explosion near the event site sent smoke and debris skyward. The commander clearly did not anticipate such a counter-offensive against him. Upon reflection, I recognized that the man was more complex than he appeared, despite deriving his strength from himself. Our hero, resolutely gripping his sharp sword, refused to surrender. Although he wasn't bleeding and his strength was minimal, he could still fight. Despite the powerful blow, he managed to reduce 450 health points and sapped away endurance, an action that alerted the commander to the specific martial art he was utilizing. Although he didn't directly attack him, their swords still clashed. Our hero sustains no damage, necessitating another attack. Therefore, he can elect to face certain death in order to achieve victory. The cold glow martial art technique, rooted in harnessing extreme cold, is an advanced form of demonic martial art. Typically employed by the highest ranks, this technique is often found to be more suitable for women than men. However, due to its prowess, many men aspire to master this martial art as well, subsequently creating numerous techniques deriving from it. Our hero has always been informed that the martial art, White Blossom, relies more on physical strength than his meridian. Since there is no other reason that explains his ease in using this martial art, this provided our hero with a significant advantage, causing his more powerful opponent to worry. Although the man's attack succeeded, his overall condition was deteriorating. The enemy swiftly strikes him again with his enormous sword. However, the man attempts to adapt to the assault, increasing his speed to recover from the strikes. He's highly skilled at it, and oddly enough, he evades incoming blows. Despite the enemy's superior strength, he managed to parry a sword strike. Their swords crossed as they locked eyes, a violent tension between them sparking questions of hatred or a desire to kill. They understood that one of them was certain to perish, yet the advantage noticeably favored our protagonist. When an enemy's strike pierced his stomach, he was flung aside. "Stop fooling around," he bellowed at his opponent. But it wasn't powerful enough to claim the man's life. His health continued to deteriorate, leaving him with just 19 health points, which was a minor setback against this enemy. The opponent admired his tactics and the duration of time he was able to withstand. In other words, it's said that he's reached his limit. He's had enough. However, he receives a system notification that his white light martial art technique has been suspended. Observing his situation, our hero realizes that his level has decreased to that of a beginner. While there is no assurance of his health being restored, his proficiency level has notably reduced as well. Unfortunately, there won't be a second chance even if he passes away. He must give his best effort. Utilizing his technique, he dismissively avoids the Wuchu while energetically jumping up and down. The commander's characteristics are incredibly striking. Since it was upgraded with new technology, its speed significantly improved. Based on this information, if it is accurate, he will succeed. Our hero's self-confidence soared dramatically, prompting him to tackle the wine. His attacks were so formidable that they instilled fear in the enemy. However, our hero proceeded with extreme caution, aware that his life hung in the balance. He planned to perform an action to evade the enemy, which unnerved the commander. When our protagonist evaluates his actions, he realizes that he has struck a devastating blow, successfully exploiting the vulnerability of his competitor, whose sword split in two and sustained cracks. Upon discovering a pivotal moment, he notices the system presenting him an ideal opportunity. He has found the vulnerable city under the command of the Sky Abyss squad and knows he must act. Nonetheless, he was confronted with those options and had to take action. It remained uncertain whether a simple attack would be sufficient to kill him this time. He opted to use a martial arts technique. Out of all the available techniques, only one VDJ, the Firehand Martial Art VDJ, was unlocked. This particular technique focused on enhancing stamina. However, his proficiency level was initially low. He places his hand on the enemy's body, activates the Firehand technique. The blazing dough roars, his eyes ignite, and his hand erupts in flames. This man possessed a demonic technique, used exclusively by those of high rank, which engulfed everything in its path in flames. He used this power to incinerate his opponent, inflicting fatal damage on him which ultimately ends his life and condemns him to hell. It was difficult to believe, but indeed he was able to defeat him. All of our hero's health and endurance indicators have reached their minimum levels. Had it not been for the warning window, he could have lost. He must leave immediately, for if his enemies find him, it will undoubtedly be his end. The slain enemy had a wealth of impressive items. These included beautiful treasures such as a blue pear, a lotus angel, a skin-transforming flame muscle, and a forbidden book that provides a tutorial on hidden skills. The day he needed to complete the task was ending as the sun set. He used a golden tincture to stop. He spent the night hidden in the woods, and it was already morning. He accomplished the task and gathered all 6 bamboo pieces. He intended to store all the items he received from the commander in his toolkit for future use. However, the toolkit rejected these items. He suspected the system was designed to prevent him from gaining an undue advantage. Initially, he contemplated whether to use the elixirs. However, even if you properly plan their usage, if he consumes them and dies beforehand, you still won't be able to benefit. He needed something with a lasting effect, unlike elixirs. A forbidden book on stealth skills and techniques, used by mentors 120 years ago, was among his possessions. His ability to remember everything he learned from it gave him a distinct advantage. He delved deeply into the book and successfully extracted all the information he desired. He acquired the skill of agility from a forbidden book. Once he absorbed all the knowledge, he began practicing breathing techniques before employing his newfound abilities. The window utilizing stealth techniques and the one appearing prior to death will serve as its advantages. The more he contemplated, the more he recognized his need for luck on his journey. He won't obtain that automatically, but he can acquire it. If he is fortunate and able to capitalize on his luck, then his aspiration to rise beyond his current potential will no longer remain a mere dream. Upon entering the building, he was blinded by an intense light. This light varied in both tone and quality. His peculiarity was extraordinary. Perhaps that was his fortune. Before he could continue, the system offered him the option to save his progress. He needed to decide which file to save in. Despite his accomplishments, our hero declines to salvage the process. He questioned whether he regretted not being preserved. But he reassures himself that he has no regrets, unsure if such an opportunity will arise again or if it was his last. However, it would be wise not to hold on to it as he has selected many more valuable treasures on this planet. Should he return in a subsequent life, he will undoubtedly have more opportunities. The boy brought the instructor the 6 bamboo sticks they had agreed upon. The instructor silently regarded our hero with folded hands. He looked at him with disappointment, as if he had failed to accomplish a task and he was his own Spartacus. Our hero turns to him and asks, "What's the problem?" The instructor responds to this by asking, "Choose the next letter on the stick." Despite all this, he will still need to make a choice among these options. Overthinking is pointless. He selects a wand, and the instructor guides him toward a completely different door on his left. The boy nodded to the instructor, agreeing with his decision. He walks past the instructor and heads towards the door. We wondered why he didn't meet anyone else when he joined the army. Once inside, he started to descend the stairs. Anticipating that this wasn't the only entrance to the military enlistment building, he expected to encounter at least one individual. He was the only one present, which was rather peculiar. Despite it all, he realized he was doing well and nothing distressed him. He tensely approached the door, ready to open it. As he opened the door, he contemplated the challenges he would encounter this time. As soon as he opened the door, the word bastard was on the tip of his tongue. A discourteous man was seated at a table, nonchalantly propping his feet up on it. He appeared quite unpleasant, his hair obscuring his eyes and his countenance equally off-putting. This greeting made our hero from the Nekoebs feel welcomed. He also sensed an intense aura of bloodlust, so powerful that it turned our hero's stomach. Upon seeing the sign, he was perplexed by the glowing question mark and +1 above his head. He couldn't grasp their meaning. A man then harshly demanded, "What are you staring at, you worthless individual?" Our hero bowed his head, asserting he had arrived for the test. Maintaining the intrigue, the man opposite him swiftly flips from one side to the other. He wanted to repeat it, assuming the other man hadn't heard him. However, he interrupted him, warning that any repetition of such nonsense would not be tolerated. He immediately strikes him. The man noticed the unpleasant odor from the case and felt an overwhelming sense of bloodlust towards the other individual. He knew what to do as it was part of the exam. However, he clenched his fist, realizing that failure to pass the exam would result in his immediate disqualification. He looked around the room and realized it was empty. He was utterly clueless about his next course of action. Not even a single clue was evident. He circled the man to observe his reaction. He believed that the man was indifferent to his actions. He picked up the note from the plate and read it. The question asked was whether, if he were not on a secret mission but was instead ordered to mediate and found himself traveling through a thick forest, would he have noticed an abandoned house? In this house, he finds the 3 people he was searching for. All 3 men, each proficient in martial arts, are preparing to depart. One of them surpasses you in strength, another matches your abilities. The stature of the 3rd man exceeds him, and regardless of his location, his subsequent actions are inconsequential. There were also action options to choose from, including lying to the guy. However, if there are no consequences for this choice, it seems pointless. Instead, it may be smarter to choose an option that involves open communication, even if it poses certain risks. Consequently, our protagonist opted to bide his time outside the house, awaiting an occurrence. He believed this was the most secure and optimal approach. After selecting this option, the seated man grinned. He abruptly stood and asserted, "I told you so." Startled, the man turns around, unclear why he's being yelled at. But in the same instant, the man's sword narrowly misses our hero's head. Therefore, his head was severed for providing an incorrect answer. Thus, by ending our hero's life and propelling him into the afterlife, he is returned to his place of safety. He stands before the Earth's demon, once again faced with 3 choices. Time seemed to stand still, and you didn't immediately realize that he was in the same location. It has returned to its original storage location. Once again, he must make a life-dependent choice. He no longer views these categories with indifference, having seen much that no longer surprises him. Just as in the previous one, you can become the primary warrior of the Earth demon. Everything was exactly as before, his words, his gaze, even his gestures. They even remembered to mention the 3 main skills. With these words, the Earth's demon departed just as it had done previously. Reflecting on the moment his life was stolen, he found himself unable to move even a finger. He realized that he was too weak at that time. To ensure survival, he realizes the need for further preparation. He examines his inventory, which contains everything he requires. All the items he acquired in his lifetime remained untouched as he never traveled anywhere. This implied that if he pilfered items from the demonstration room and concealed the tools, they would appear in his subsequent existence. Excited about his next chapter in life, he decided to explore the demo room on the ground floor. Discover something beneficial there that will open up new horizons for him. By looking in the mirror, he noticed 2 second-chance life coins and realized that coupled with the additional life earned from defeating the commander, he only had 2 lives left. It rejuvenated him, making him realize he was all right and needed to uplift his spirits. He meticulously searched the room but found nothing of use. Then, he delved into the wardrobe in hopes of finding something valuable. While rifling through the belongings scattered on the ground, he noticed something intriguing. Hidden behind the clothes. He inserted his hands into the hole. He discovered an exceptional forbidden book that captivated him and resulted in one of the 4 primary demonic temptations afflicting him. This martial art, passed down by the heavenly demon to his disciples, is one of the primary combat techniques of the demons. This book has compiled over 200 descriptions detailing this martial art. The demon of the earth had received this form of martial arts, which was considered the strongest. As soon as he found it, he hurried to the basement. He ran so strenuously that he was left breathless from exertion and exhaustion. Upon inspecting his inventory, he discovers that a new book has been added, which he can now use for teaching. This unique book could bestow upon him abilities he had only dreamed of. He wasn't overjoyed, but he nevertheless shouted, "Hooray!" It felt surreal to him, with goosebumps prickling his skin at the sight of the demonic art. He could hardly believe it. He joyfully dropped to the floor like a child, celebrating this gift. He has already begun to unwind, envisioning the strength it will provide him. However, he had another matter to inspect. He examined the parameters indicated in his status. He realizes that his circumstances are so dire, he must stop for now and request a flying dragon pill. He likely understood the reasons for his demise in his past life. However, opting for only safe choices may not yield positive results, despite his cautiousness. In the army, the decision about who will receive the treasure is made for those fully prepared to battle against the masters. Regardless of the circumstances, he knew he had to become stronger. Upon seeing the elixirs in his inventory, he made the decision to use every last one. The elixir of living skin boosted his health by 1,000, while the elixir of blue pear increased his stamina by an additional 1,000. Hence, our hero experienced a power he had never felt before. The outcome surpassed his expectations, giving him the sense that not only had the parameters changed, not only did his muscles grow larger, but his body fat also reduced significantly. His height also increased significantly, making him much taller. Finally, after much anticipation, he managed to master one of the 4 principal demonic martial arts, wind. This formidable power could demolish an entire building with a mere finger snap. He cultivated this energy to personally experience its potency, suddenly receiving a notification that it is currently blocked. He knows how he became involved and began pondering its significance. However, the system indicated that in order to utilize it, he requires 30,000 health points and 50,000 stamina points. He says he cannot do it yet, as he still has a long journey to achieve this result. Although he is contemplating his current self, he still needs to achieve success. He needs to conserve his energy if he wants to do this. The fact that he possesses a technique that conserves his stamina is indeed a great boon from fate. In the updated image, he stands tall, lifting his magical sword. He should disclose the secrets of this technique. He returned on the day of his army recruitment when he was expecting an escort. Provide him with an elixir, a single pill capable of boosting his energy levels as though he has utilized it for a decade, anticipating an encounter with a watermelon. He provided him with an immortality pill, which significantly elevated his performance once more. He realized that by improving his endurance, he could elevate from being a novice. This change would enable him to defend himself effectively in the army. They swiftly reached their recruitment location. Just as in his past, the escort stated that he needed to leave. Our hero was merely waiting for the system to proceed with the event selection. Once again, she materialized, presenting him with a choice of events in order to grant him the flying dragon pill he had found on the ground. He chose an option before the essence of life vanished, and both of these choices were distinct. Without hesitation, he decisively asked, "Give me the flying dragon pill." The demon's messenger demanded that the boy repeat his words. However, demonstrating resilience, the boy affirmed, "Hand her over to me." The Earth's demon informed me that you had presented me with both an immortality pill and a flying dragon, mentioning it merely as a precaution. The escort paused momentarily, giving the man a strange look. The man, jokingly scratching his head, said, "Oh, he didn't give it to you? I apologize. Naturally, it will take him more time. But no matter what, if it happened..." The messenger extends a hand, revealing a red pill within his grasp. Since I had already handed it to the man, he was in possession of it. "Thank you," our hero says. "So you had it." However, the conversation's tone shifted, and the anger of the demonic ambassador became distinctly audible. He abruptly landed a punch in the guy's stomach. He collapses to the ground, contorted. The messenger forcefully steps on the boy's head, pushing it to the ground, disrespectfully showing anger towards him. He continues to harm the boy, laughing. He then leans over him, declaring that he is destined to die there anyway. However, if by some miracle he manages to survive, he will inevitably perish at the hands of this messenger. Bending over the boy, he spat in his face. Saliva drips onto his heavily scarred face. The envoy is content, having demonstrated his authority and previewed the consequences. She walks away, leaving him lying on the ground. Despite everything, our hero consumes the pill. As soon as he ingested it, it began to take effect. He glances at the messenger, realizing that his survival is at stake. He will certainly seek revenge, drastically enhancing his parameters. His skills will elevate by 1 level, accompanied by a significant increase in his mind-reading ability. He promises himself to eliminate this villain as soon as his plan is outlined. He continues to move and is now near the instructor who recruited him into the army. In his previous life, he was given the option to choose a bamboo stick. He decisively chooses the torso sign. The task remains the same as last time, to collect 6 pieces of bamboo, each with the provided inscription. He is given a day to pass. If he submits it tomorrow, he will succeed. However, at that moment, he became curious. Holding a bamboo stick in his hand, he makes a decision. Ask the instructor why no one passed the test. Given the number of bamboo pieces, there must be other people around. So why is there no one here? The instructor remained silent and did not respond to the question. He remained still, maintaining a sense of great intrigue towards the man. The man inquired about his potential mistake, even while the instructor was present in front of him. However, no one ever mustered the courage to speak with him. The instructor remained silent, prompting the man to realize that he should depart. However, he spoke a single, dreadful word, echoing the instructor's directive. Eyes. Their gaze is directed upwards and into the distance. The concept was entirely unfathomable for a man who hadn't experienced much in his life. Despite this, he realized there was something else. Perhaps if he doesn't see them, it indicates they arrived at a different time or used another entrance. Those already here continually strive to strengthen and improve themselves. To him, the adage, eyes are looking higher and higher, began to resonate. It suggested that those who follow will invariably be stronger, but he realized this would not alter his circumstance. If he must engage them in battle, he must move quicker and gain an advantage through collecting more items. This one emerges from battle mode and returns to the battlefield, and understands that a violent conflict will soon occur here. This time, things are different. In his past life, he was unexpectedly attacked near a building. In this life, he will unexpectedly launch an attack. The man circled the building multiple times, unable to locate the individual who was waiting for him. The longer he waited, the higher his chances of being the first one attacked. He was exasperated by this expectation and regretted the time he was wasting. But he remained calm, focusing on his task and continuing his search for the villain. When standing near the building, he receives a system notification that his weakness has been discovered by the enemy. This is his cue to act. He once chose to flee, but while retreating, he was wounded in his back. Perhaps due to feeling overwhelmed and not executing his actions properly, he failed to dodge the attack. At that moment, he didn't bother defending himself. Even though his opponent wasn't highly ranked, in the current circumstances, he could effortlessly knock him down. Our hero decided to confront the situation in person, and the scenario progressed. It pertains to encountering that man with the unpleasant haircut again. While preparing for battleground, the enemy perceives his superiority and presumes that our hero will be an easy opponent to conquer. A man with an atrocious hairstyle assaults our protagonist. You resorted to nothing better than surprising our hero with an attack. However, for him, they were merely toys since everything in his past life was significantly more challenging. With just a single technique, you swiftly repelled the enemy's attack. A man with a poor hairstyle is damaged from a collision that knocks him aside. It wasn't difficult at all. Rather, it was like a wild game that becomes progressively easier with each level. The adversary collapses after the strike, unaware of how close he came to death. Suddenly, his opponent realizes there is a significant disparity in their skill levels. Even before the battle commenced, he detected something awry with our hero just from a mere glance. The system alerts our protagonist that the enemy has uncovered his vulnerability, offering an immediate opportunity to respond. In this ominous moment, the hero grips his sword with determination, prepared to engage in bright, fervent combat. One notable feature of the screen that appears in front of the protagonist is its alignment with him, affording him the benefit of clearly perceiving the accelerating snow. Facing each other, they assess their power. However, it seems easier for the man to defeat this inferior opponent. He is content with his skills and acknowledges that his life has become significantly more intriguing. It's not that he enjoys killing. Rather, his skills have evolved. He cannot comprehend the thrilling aspects of the skills disparity between them. He enjoys being stronger than his adversaries, finding great pleasure in it. In this life, he can conquer this adversary using any kind of intermediate skill. He has already attempted an offensive attack in martial arts. He hasn't yet explored the final option. This choice is not pre-selected, and instructions for using the item will only be displayed once. He opens the toolkit and immediately realizes that something is wrong. The forbidden books have vanished, only healing and equipment items remain. It seems these are the only items I can use at the moment. The best fit short sword for him in this fight is number 1. They choose a short sword, deciding whether to wield it in their right or left hand. They spend some time exploring this unfamiliar method as the scenario progresses. Suddenly, our hero confronts the enemy, brandishing a powerful new sword. The individual has learned and applied a new method, enhancing his skills substantially. This newfound ability provided him a significant advantage over his adversaries, impressing him greatly. Consequently, he became increasingly formidable. This method will be beneficial for our hero if he loses or breaks his sword. However, he won't be able to execute it with ease, only when a window of opportunity appears that detects a vulnerability, because it persistently attacks the enemy. Enraged, he charges at the boy, yelling, "Die!" He raises his sword above his shoulders, swinging it with all his might. However, it is too weak to cause any significant harm to our hero. He thrusts his sword into it, thereby ending its life. He stands, observing the pitiful slave. A barber could have aided him, but not in this instance. Saying that he dislikes killing these wretches hardly covers it. In truth, he derives pleasure and a sense of power from it. While examining the body, the man considers that he has an additional attack in his arsenal. If he utilizes the emergency elixir, this attack has the ability to revert things by 3 seconds, thereby restoring strength. He won't understand how to use it unless he actually tries. The following day, after collecting all the necessary bamboo sticks, he returns to the army barracks. Returning to the courtyard near one of the entrances, he speculated on how many people might be interested in joining the army. What treasures can be found within, and how many there are? He is certain that greater tasks yield greater rewards, so there is no room for delay. With his new abilities, he can now effortlessly cover his tracks, leaving no evidence behind. Nonetheless, it's important to remember that stealth demands endurance. Despite his increased strength, it does not guarantee immunity from an unexpected loss of life. Regardless, he must always exercise caution, no matter the situation. Upon entering a building where the army is stationed and trained, he proceeds with utmost caution. He has come here to conduct reconnaissance. He seeks to learn something valuable or gain new experience. While rummaging through drawers and cabinets, you might overlook this valuable item. It was quite peculiar, but no treasure was found. However, it would have been quite simple if it could have been discovered in such a manner. Then he notices the sound of footsteps approaching him. He realizes that he must hide. He conceals himself behind a building corner to avoid drawing attention, effectively disguising himself. Before, his hearing wasn't sharp enough to detect someone walking at such a distance. However, with his enhanced agility, he can now perceive even the slightest sounds nearby. Primarily, the Dionysus technique is designed to conceal one's presence. It tends to indicate that someone is nearby, so it's understandable that dexterity possesses such a detection effect. A soldier enters the room, proceeds directly to the next one, oblivious to his surroundings, and continues his motion. The boy had yet to learn how to open a defective window, but he was eager to try. He persisted in following this warrior. He realized he was in motion, but due to the closed door, he had no idea what he was doing. The notion that sitting in the hallway without protection could make him a target for attack was clear to him. There was no need to invite conflict within this building. Our hero currently doesn't need the substantial trouble this will cause. He attempted to enter the room, only to notice an individual sifting through others' belongings. He couldn't believe the man was attempting to steal something, but he also observed him. Upon checking his status, he noticed a significant change in his health. Suddenly, our hero launches an unexpected attack on the enemy. However, he intercepts and deflects the protagonist's attack. However, anyone could be defeated by the immense power and skill this individual possesses. The man's attempt to ambush the enemy resulted in a battle in an unfavorable location. The leader of the Holy Deity's destruction squad was unprepared for this battle, yet he was compelled to fight. He swiftly jumps up and attempts to use his techniques to deliver a deadly blow to our hero. However, he accidentally tripped, causing his leg to dislocate. Suddenly, the squad leader unexpectedly lowered his guard. This was an opportunity that provided him with an advantage, and he couldn't resist taking it. Without wasting any time, he quickly grabs the gun and attacks. He pierces the enemy with his sword, thereby ending the enemy's life. Despite the blow's strength, it did not immediately kill the commander, but instead inflicted a fatal wound. He stands over him, sword lodged in his ribs as he catches his breath. The commander is lying down, coughing up blood. The man was slightly alarmed because the windows didn't signal what was coming. The reclining commander of the Holy Deity instructs him to just kill him. Assuming our hero proposed that the will to live likely doesn't exist for those who have already relinquished it, he decided to eliminate this man. He then notices a nutrition bar in a drawer to his right. He observes the bar, ponders its presence, and wonders why it is situated here. He is interested in asking some questions to which he seeks answers. He wonders what he has been searching for here for so long. The wounded commander lies on the floor, feigning unconsciousness. The man understands the potential for an unexpected attack, and thus he must preemptively confront this rascal. The system then presents him with a choice in a window, to kill or to ask. As usual, in a way that he didn't understand, the system made sudden adjustments to his plans. Yet again, the commander was lying on the floor asking, "Why don't you kill me?" He is aware and understands this according to his evaluation. He attempts to prompt his enemy, the commander, to deduce why he has not yet killed him, although the commander remains unclear about his intentions. He opts to interrogate him rather than killing him outright. His hand ignites, dealing a fiery strike to the enemy. Using this technique, he can separate muscle from bone and enhance the sensitivity of his receptor through concentrated energy expenditure. He also manipulates the bones to maximize his suffering. After employing harsh techniques, the commander unabashedly questions the boy about his expected response. However, our protagonist doesn't give up, wishing for him to understand that he is being observed. These riddles perplex the commander, who simply wished for death rather than endure such nonsense. The man runs his hand through his hair and asks, "Do you want me to do it again?" The commander, unable to bear the pain any longer, declared, "I've got it." Inquiring about his possessions, the man responds, "What do you mean?" The commander responds, "I understood from the first time you spoke. I have a bandana available if he's interested." The man opens the commander's bandana with his hand. There he discovers one of the most cryptic artifacts which won't hinder him. He possessed a map smeared with sap, which marked the cities where treasures were hidden. A purple cover denoted the territory held by the army. In total, there were 10 key items marked on the map. Overwhelmed by his luck, the young man could hardly believe his fortune. The commander persistently implored him to let him die. The task was quite simple. Just click on one active point and you're done. He chooses not to end his life to prevent causing suffering to the commander. However, the system halts him once more, suggesting he query the commander again. Gazing through the window, the man contemplated. Despite not displaying any signs of enthusiasm, the commander, he concealed something else from our hero. He was determined to gather as much information and knowledge as possible before his death. The room echoed with our hero's pleas to the screaming commander. Using this technique, he acquired 7 pieces of the treasure map. At this juncture, the commander descended directly into turmoil. He realized that this cunning individual frequently hid extra cards in his shoes and underwear, but it was extreme to conceal them in his buttocks. Having gathered all the cards frequently used throughout the army, he opens it for inspection. He observes a significant detail, turning towards the side where the bar lay. Upon examining it, he realizes that his assumption is correct. There must be treasure in this room. However, the map lacks clarity, suggesting the possibility of deception. Someone took the treasure first and in a taunting gesture, placed a bar here. He grasps the map, realizing he needs to expedite his actions, as the treasure could swiftly vanish. Continuing his treasure hunt, he opens the stove and finds a manual on voice transmissions, one of his first discoveries. The book was not particularly useful in that situation and required more time. He assimilates the information from the book and uncovers a new feature. The book, considered forbidden, includes voice transmission. He now has an advantage on the second and is counting down from it. He discovered the next treasure hidden in a hole behind a closet. Of course, he no longer needed the manual for creating demonic iron poison. However, if they acquire the knowledge, it will not be extraneous. Climbing atop a house, he continued his search for treasure, damaging the rooftop with his equipment. He damaged the roof, and in the process, a valuable object fell from it. He was certain they'd put great effort into concealing them in the ceiling. They appeared to be some kind of mittens. It was a high-end demonic wrist item. The item was highly valuable. However, not comprehending the meaning of high class, he opted to utilize it. As soon as he put them on, he mastered the basic wind technique, and the advanced technique, blazing hell lance, was within his grasp. Impressed by their power, receiving this item was not a cause for shame. The handcuffs belonged to an older man, a key figure in our faction. Most significantly, he was among the most influential elders of the academy. He contemplated whether he had sacrificed his own well-being for the new recruits, willing to give their lives. Now he understands why soldiers are held in such high esteem. Upon opening the map, he realizes that he has already secured 3 treasures. However, another has been claimed by someone else. He must expedite his quest to find the remaining treasures. After closing the map, he decisively contemplates his plan. I must not hesitate, as only 3 treasures have been found and the rest still remain undiscovered. He descends the stairs from the roof, hearing a noise. It was the cry of the training warriors. The cry was unnaturally clear, and he wondered about its origin. Using stealth, he approached the room where the fights were occurring to observe them. In this room, men from various factions were training. He started analyzing their skill sets and statuses. The 7 Dragon Group members faced off against their adversaries, dismissively suggesting they leave and seek competition on their own level. The other assured they could manage because they had received the necessary training. A representative of the second faction yelled, "By their appearance, they seem to be burning a vile demon. Do they not realize the clumsiness of their synchronization?" These were members of the Demon Dragon group, who claimed they would be in trouble if they failed to launch an effective attack. Upon analyzing the situation, he discerns that the detestable Demon Chamber is in actuality the Red Dragon Chamber. This is one of the 4 principal rooms maintaining the existence of the military within the Demon Academy. Both the Supreme Court Lord and the Holy Deity Court Lord are members of this Red Dragon Chamber and hold prominent positions within it. Due to this, they exude masculinity, and each one is a strong figurehead, like a captain, under the shadow of the Black Moon. A conflict has now erupted between them and their subordinates. Well, one of the treasures was right behind them, and the man couldn't afford to miss this opportunity. Despite his superior abilities, the man was unsure how to proceed in this situation, and chose it best to avoid contact with them. He plans to review the methods they will present to the authorities, but he is certain they won't address the perpetual need. He was tasked with dealing with them and was contemplating various strategies. Suddenly, they began an irrational argument. A serious conflict erupted between them. Theoretically, as an analyst of this battle, it's wiser to formulate a plan promptly rather than recklessly charging into the attack. He cannot afford to leave without achieving anything. We recall moments from our past and understand that taking risks is vital for gaining strength. He came to this realization after experiencing numerous near-death experiences. Then one solider crouches down, having taken a hit. Our protagonist meticulously records everything. Suddenly, without his knowledge, a system window appears, informing him that he has discovered a vulnerable city belonging to the Dragon Group. It also provides him with the capacity to choose from various event options. Suddenly, a window appears. The man decides it would be best to wait until one of the contestants loses before joining the fight, as he fears defeat. You devised a new strategy that positioned you near the enemy, leaving them no choice but to accept it. He understands that wushu, the martial art he practices, is ideal for one-on-one combat. However, he's up against 4 opponents, all from the army and skilled in energy attacks. Consequently, he expects to be assaulted. Despite everything, he needs to take action. He opted for the technique of closely approaching the enemy from his chosen direction. But every time new opportunities arose and he explored innovative variations of the strategy. Of the 4 options the system provided, he realized he could instantly teleport anywhere. He was so moved by the thought that it even gave him goosebumps. He concluded that fortunately this would not impact the situation because time had come to a standstill. He analyzes each warrior he observes. His associate is standing beside him. It is advisable to approach from the east and north for safety, as this will maintain a comfortable distance from these individuals and their associates. We then had to consider carefully. It was not as straightforward as it appeared. He must eliminate one man from each pair. If the other side has only one person remaining, they will not attack him, since there is a chance that they may confront and attack each other. Then he ignites his energy and chooses the northern side. The situation persists and you do not immediately find yourself on this side. I noticed a stone near my friend, but he didn't react immediately. His posture indicated one thing alone: imminent death. His icy, keen blade pierces a soldier's body. A soldier receives a fatal blow that costs him his life. Dear participants, amidst the confusion of this battle, uncertainty about what course of action to take prevails. Such an unexpected turn of events was not anticipated. One of their partners lay dead on the ground, unaware of his demise. Our hero's confidence remains unshaken. He had presumed his plan was successful, but now it's unclear whether he is entirely certain of it. It was a moment of divine serendipity that unfolded as he had hoped. The system then displays a message indicating that you have not identified a weakness. For everyone in this room, it was an extraordinary opportunity. The ideal chance to end their lives instantly. You will feel more confident than anyone else in this room. Our hero's actions allowed no time for hesitation. Difference of the makeshift authorities. This implies that he is in a situation similar to mine, desiring power above all else, and he comprehends this. Asserting that his steadfast nature can now serve as his strength, it may assist in soothing the anger that was inflicted upon him. Remembering the assassin who ended his life, and his belief that one side gains an advantage by increasing its capabilities, while the other eliminates any fool standing on its path. A representative from the Demon Academy communicates with a member of a different faction. Therefore, the status of the Supreme Lord in the Ta Court is in jeopardy. The persistent thought of exacting revenge on him consumes his mind, leading him to devise a plan. He discovered what Pike had found and acknowledged what he needed to understand. He advises to select this option for it to work. Hence, he revisits this period when he was assaulted by a powerfully built man, but manages to thwart the attacker. His words halted the man, allowing our hero's life to continue. Startled by your statement, the man pauses to inquire about your words. However, our hero cannot reverse his course. He persists in communicating his views, asserting that the Earth's demon was unable to defeat the cohorts of the heavenly demon. Once the demons made their decision, the other disciples had already initiated their quest for an ally. No matter how hard he strived, he found the task challenging. A chilling sword lay beside our protagonist, but the terrestrial demon warned him against altering the topic. He continues to assert his point until even the Earth's demon is compelled to listen to him. Though he could have easily killed him, he was instead surprisingly interested in listening to him. Summoning all his strength, the man implores the Earth demon to elect the Supreme Court's Chief Justice. Upon hearing these words, both the earthbound demon and the Gentiles failed to comprehend his message. The man noticed that the demonstrator's gaze was fixed on the ground and made some adjustments. He knelt before him, declaring that the Supreme Court was the core of the Red Demon's domain. If he secures control of the High Court, it will significantly benefit him. Didn't he find him for that reason? This man became intrigued by his words, prompting a transformation within his soul. The boy remained kneeling, but the Earth demon sheathed his dagger. The man glanced to gauge his reaction. He informs him that the Earth's demon did not arrive here seeking the book on the 3 fundamental skills. If it had, you wouldn't be here anymore. He silently observed and attentively listened as the boy speculated about what might have caused the appearance of the celestial demon. What could have motivated him to engage in conversation with a man standing at the bottom of the stairs? Upon further reflection, he realized that he had arrived here. Rather than asking directly, he sought someone who could inform him about the vulnerabilities of the Supreme Court's Chief Justice. The information greatly intrigued the demon, compelling him to listen to the man attentively. Before that, however, he was questioned about his decision. His only response was that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court had instructed the Aerial Division to carry out reconnaissance. It had been a month since he joined the department, and notably, he was the only one expelled from the faction. Was this a mere coincidence? If it's true that he was responsible for the demise of all the incoming factions in the Demon Land, as rumors and faith suggest, then there would be no reason for him to be here. Even if he arrived by accident, he still would have no reason to engage with this obscure individual. Our protagonist convinces this man that he is extraordinary and destined for a different purpose. The Earth's demon laughed at the words. In response to the various arguments, the Earth demon chuckled, saying he now comprehended why the old man harbored such disliking towards him. In one way or another, he informs him that he can discuss these weaknesses. The man tilted his head forward and confidently affirmed the truth. The Earth's demon inquired about his weaknesses, but the boy remained silent. He raises his hands and asserts that you can't just ponder, you must actually voice your thoughts. However, the man stood up, stating that if he informed the individual on the ground about the information he sought, what he receives in return. Upon hearing this suggestion, the Earth demon cast a chilly gaze at the boy. However, the purpose of all this was unclear to the terrestrial demon, as it seemed like mere trading in his view. However, our hero remained undeterred, stating that he was willing to risk his life if it meant receiving something in return. Such a prospect did not trouble him. The demon of the earth argues that nothing is certain and life holds little value. To this, our hero responds that although he understands that nothing is inherently valuable, if his knowledge can enhance his time and effort, it's worth it. Isn't that enough? The guy asks. The Earth demon, considering the potential value in it, turns his back on the man. After considering it, he looks at the boy again, and concurs with his perspective, thereby impacting our protagonist. If he indeed possesses such accurate information, he promises to disclose it fully. Our hero has no reason to distrust the words of the earthly demon. He informed him that the Supreme Court's Lord's weakness was Elder Huang Shan. When the Earth demon heard this, he regarded him indifferently and queried, "What evidence does he possess?" All he dared to say was that since the information about the Lord of the Supreme Well was only speculative, it didn't much impress the Earth demon. However, our protagonist persisted, stating, "Even a simple debt may hold great significance for the Earth's demon, a fact he could not dispute." The man explains that numerous graves surround him, and if he were to narrow his investigation to one individual, he wouldn't have enough evidence to substantiate his hypothesis. Many Earth demons are capable of telling the truth. It's quite feasible that our hero, kneeling before the Earth's demon, shared his conjectures and intelligence, desperately hoping that these words wouldn't lead to his demise. The man responded to all the conspiracy theories with a smile. The boy was gripped by a fear of the ambiguous situation. He couldn't discern whether he had agreed. However, the demon of the earth inquired about his name before approaching him. The man repeated his name, to which he responded, "Allow me to clarify something," before he can proceed. He must complete an assigned task. What was the role of the intriguing individual? But the Earth's demon uttered only one name: Jack. The mission was to eliminate this individual. If he fails to fulfill this task, he won't earn the trust of the people, and he should recognize this. He may align himself with the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, effectively dispelling claims of his non-allegiance. He inquires if he can accomplish it. However, the man responds stating, "It's not about what I can do, but rather what I should do." He admits and concedes that he can do it. He claims to be the commander of the Sol V Aerial Division. The Jackman is certainly going to defeat him, consequently pleasing the spectators on the ground. His words exude confidence, mirroring his mastery. Our hero embarks on a new chapter in his life. He has been assigned a task by the Earth Demon and is currently preparing for his mission. Don your armor and wield your sharpened sword. He confidently leaves the library, towards the goal destined for him by fate. The Earth's Demon awaits him on the 12th floor of the department. The mission's objective is to locate and eliminate the Jukeman. Despite the difficulty of the task, our hero had no doubt in his abilities. The Earth Demon likely believes that our man is incapable of killing the bug. Despite his inferior status compared to the Heavenly Demon, he is absolutely, "I'm confident that this has reached a new level." His new skill aids his survival despite substantial disadvantages, and the art of white glowing bolsters his confidence. Our hero enters the 10th stage of his life, striding down a brightly lit street in the dead of night. Our protagonist deduces that a man is most vulnerable and can be effortlessly targeted for assassination when he is relaxed, eating, sleeping, or on a date. As he walks, he notices a restroom. The place was a restroom. There is no better place on earth for relaxation than at a spa. The man constantly contemplated about it, resorting to beating him out of boredom, routine, and even when he was unwell. He suddenly begins to strategize his revenge, contemplating how he could kill Juk Meng. This individual has been stationary for an extended period, so you'll need to conceal yourself at his most vulnerable point. He should, absurdly enough, climb into the hole and launch an attack from there. Our protagonist, a toilet brush, endures his grim and distasteful task. To mitigate the foul odor, he adorns a mask, thankful that he only has to undertake this chore once. Regardless of circumstances, he promises himself to persevere, survive, and rise above all adversity. Then he noticed his enemy was approaching. He glances at him, noticing that the contemptible Jackman is punctual as always. As predicted, he consistently opts for the push. A man humorously leaps into a gap in the restroom, relieved to find it devoid of any unpleasant odors. He was fortunate that the dough was likely fresh made on site. He glances upwards, closely taking note of his opponent's actions. Already en route and about to take a break, Jack Moon undresses and settles in, preparing to use the restroom. The man is terrified by this unexpected event, as both his life and clothing depend on the outcome, prompting him to stand on the rack. He believes that doing it once is sufficient. Jake Moon is already seated on the toilet, relaxing. The hero grabs a sword and aims it at his weak point. Suddenly, a floral-scented ingredient fell directly onto his head. As you might have inferred, this unexpected occurrence drove our protagonist to madness. He evades Jack Moon's counterattack, refusing to relinquish his position. He avoids products from Jack Moon. He is relieved to have avoided the collision. He decides to act now. At this juncture, the system abruptly recommends our hero to employ the art of sword fighting. The system alerts him that he has discovered the enemy's vulnerability, offering a chance to inflict significant damage. Unexpectedly, however, our hero's body seizes up and stops moving on its own. By combining moves, you can deliver a powerful strike directly to your opponent's weak point. Jack Moon is an ordinary man. He struggles to comprehend his situation. Looking back, he sees the flame heading directly toward his vulnerability. He couldn't comprehend the situation because he hadn't anticipated such an unusual occurrence in the restroom. However, the potency of the hero's punch was extraordinarily mighty, damaging the fragile restroom. His forceful blow caused destruction, shattering the roof into pieces which flew off to the sides. Our hero was thrilled by the impact he had managed to make. Naturally, Jack Moon was taken aback by the unexpected assault. The force of his retaliation was so powerful that he inflicted 1404 points of damage on his opponent. Clear Snow stood before his adversary, realizing he was in a dire situation. He observed the energy from his sword and was overwhelmed by its immense power. The enemy's health is not depleted, indicating they are not dead. After completing the assignment, I needed to clean up. Of course, it's not every day that one finds oneself stuck in a restroom. Despite being cleaned, the place still carried the scent of our hero's signature fragrance. Gazing at the water, he noticed an inscription overhead that read, 3 coins, a third chance. Its meaning, however, remained unknown. After taking an evening shower, he sat in the field and watched the sunset. He was pleased to know that he successfully completed the task, despite the high cost. Despite this, he chose to check his status because it was unclear how he had utilized it. This shot demonstrates the specialized skill of the white light martial art, highlighting the swordsmanship and precise movements required to master this ability. Though it was abrupt, he didn't comprehend who was pulling his strings or how he was managing it. When he altered the ball's energy, it did not diminish his ability or endurance in any way. If he can utilize the entirety of this incredible resource without any limitations. By realizing this, he can become stronger, and currently he feels happy. Regardless, he continued to struggle with one issue. His right arm was injured and non-functional. His disability rendered his arm useless, and should it become known that he had murdered Jake Moon, his peril would significantly escalate. With such a handicap, it will be challenging for him to gain more strength in this life, and he has no alternative but to establish the foundation for his life. He surmised that even if he revealed everything to the Earth Demon, its trust could still not be fully secured. Our protagonist is not entirely aware of his own motivations. Suddenly, it abruptly launches from the ground. He approaches the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court to report the issue. He arrives at the palace, kneels before the Lord, and announces that the Chan Yin has arrived. He warmly greets the Justice of the Supreme Court, though the Justice was not anticipating his visit and is unsure of his unanticipated arrival. Vladica had already thought he was losing his mind, but he had figured it out. How can he dare to show up at his office? What could he possibly be thinking at that moment? Despite this, he remains perplexed as to why he has an unpleasant odor. Our hero, leaning over the bishop, asserts that he had no choice, contributing to the bishop's confusion. This implies that not only would he have climbed into the toilet, but he also wouldn't have dismissed Jack Moon, the captain of the Black Moon Squad. The bishop was perplexed by the news of Jack Moon's death. In a fit of rage, he radiated a demonic energy. Simultaneously, he puzzled over how he had managed to slay him earlier. The man was hesitant, realizing the severity of his situation. Danger was already looming, leaving him in a state of distress. He felt his breathing growing increasingly difficult under the oppressive presence of the demonic flame. Vladica is interested in recalling whom he previously met. However, our protagonist failed to comprehend his hints and asked, "What do you mean?" However, Vodik showed no interest in this. He firmly grasped his hair, lifted it up, and stated, "Don't roll your eyes at me here. And if he mentions something I hadn't considered, the Lord can claim his life in an instant, for he is truly remarkable." However, our protagonist proclaims that if he is not of higher importance, then there's something I am concealing from you. Vladica couldn't comprehend how the boy could conceal something from him that he had just spoken. He hasn't encountered such a fool in a long time. Upon discovering that the person genuinely wishes to die, he seems to have lost his mind. The bishop required him to tell the truth. Nevertheless, the man continued his sentence, stating that given the bishop's apparent wish for him not to perish, he briefly mentioned that if you're interested, he would share his vision of the Earth Demon that led him here. Although untrue, the lie could still ruin him if discovered. He made a decision to reveal crucial information to the bishop. If the bishop claims you assisted him, then I comprehend your reasons for killing Jack Moon. Decides to give the boy an opportunity by inviting him to ask questions. He questioned the elder, informing him that the Earth's demon had inquired about the time and place of their clandestine meeting with Elder John Menno. How will he react, however, if a member of the Demon Academy communicates with someone from a rival faction, an act regarded as betrayal, regardless of the reasons? The bishop stepped 10 meters away from the boy, deep in thought. How could he audaciously inquire about such a matter? He indeed asked. The man responds affirmatively. The bishop poses another question, asking him about a different subject. When you encounter him again after his departure, he questions you about the alleged act of betrayal. Although intended as a psychological maneuver by our hero, it proved insufficiently effective. He quietly suggests to the earthly demon waterer to seriously ponder over this question, urging honesty in his response. The room was quiet yet intriguing. After a while, Bishop mentioned the Yellow Mountain. We had previously agreed to meet there at the start of next month. The man was surprised that the bishop succumbed to his deception. Then our hero spots a system message on the floor. What could it be? There was nothing in that system. At that moment, he received a confidential card from the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. The artifact was extremely valuable, and he was given an opportunity to examine it. Without hesitation, he decided to seize the opportunity. This book's description highlights the cities most frequently visited by the Supreme Court bishop, and also mentions the path to Yellow Mountain, where he first encountered the Elder, a meeting that filled the boy with joy. The capabilities of this card paved the way for the creation of a new tool, a nutritional bar made from medicinal herbs, and a secret card, a feature requested by a certain individual. However, the tension escalated as the bishop confronted the challenge. The bishop's eerie voice questioned, "When did the Earth's demon manage to teach you martial arts?" Unable to respond to these words immediately, our hero was still contemplating the news he had received a couple of days ago. The bishop, seemingly staring into space, repeated his question. "When did you establish the department with a yin and a yang?" he asked, referring to the incident that occurred back then. The bishop was incredulous that he had dispatched the boy on such a mission so far back in time. Nonetheless, he maintained his confidence in the boy, provided him with the necessary training, and ultimately authorized him to assassinate Jack Moon. Moreover, he also instructed someone to gather information from the bishop, which turned out to be true. With a quivering voice, our hero responded as follows. The bishop VDJTM's hand plunges into his chest, causing blood to spill and flood the room. Our hero recognizes the severity of his circumstances and realizes he doesn't have much time left in life. Reacting with intense fury to those comments, the bishop retorted, "You wretch, you must take me for a fool." The hand that brushed past the boy, penetrating and causing him to bleed profusely. The man questions his existence, noticing that his mouth is bleeding. Why am I here? Why don't I feel anything when I am harmed or when he harms others? And why is he constantly seeking to become stronger? The journey began with one question: why? The question evolved into why I should support those stronger than him, perhaps because I accidentally spilled water in the yard. In a soft, gentle voice, the bishop inquires if you understand why you were defeated. The land's demon refuses to teach martial arts to anyone. He exclusively utilizes the techniques imparted to him by the heavenly demon. Despite bleeding profusely, our hero maintained a smile. His response further infuriated the bishop. As he lay dying, he asked him, "Do you know or not?" He responded with a laugh. "Are you aware of the situation? Apparently, you don't know the entire truth." The bishop's expression altered upon realizing this. He smiled through his pain, declaring triumphantly, "You really did lose to me." The room was filled with the bishop's fury and malevolent energy. He withdraws his hand from the man's body and yells, "Bastard!" The man's body was grotesquely disfigured, with blood saturating the whole room. The bishop's fury towards this rogue remains unabated. The system is filled with bright light before it restarts. The man awakens once more in the room where he underwent his previous training, lying on the same bed where he used to recuperate. He realizes that it has returned. He firmly squeezes his hand, rejoicing in its health and strength. He apparently has only 2 lives remaining. He examines the system display, revealing his status. When he notices her, he gazes at her intensely. The system indicated he was in a normal physical condition, with his skills, status, and attack unchanged and no new interpretations from before. He thoughtfully examines the information, uncertain whether his unaffected arm, health, and stamina are the reasons, or if the white light martial art is simply unavailable. Although you may not recall this technique, each movement is embedded in his memory, even if it doesn't seem so. Upon acquiring the martial art of white light, this system integrates you. Additionally, your skills are upgraded. Eventually, the user realizes that accomplishing these skills allows them to be transferred into his next life. He also included tools from his previous life, such as herbal medicine, a nutrient bar, and a map, although he doesn't yet fully understand their utilization. Opens the card. How he obtained a card that became priceless to him. He was elated to discover such findings, relishing in the convenience it brought. He unfurls the map and attempts to decipher it. He found valuable information within the book, including a map of the Yellow Mountain that the bishop had mentioned. The other contents pertain to medicinal herbs, common plants that thrive in various conditions and have health benefits. Upon identifying the item as a nutritional bar, he selects this category and the bar appears in his hands. He is surprised to behold this object in his hands, having never encountered it in his life before. He tastes the bar without any hesitation. He is simply astounded by its flavor, having never tasted such a delicacy before. It was incredibly delicious with an amazing taste. The most significant effect of the bar was the restoration of his health by 1 unit. If he consumed it entirely, his health would increase to 3 units. He further analyzed the system, contemplating returning the bar to preserve it. However, the system offered him this opportunity. He insisted on returning the object, ensuring it didn't disappear from his hands. In this way, he retains this tool for future use, bringing him immense joy in the present moment. He didn't have much time and quickly moved forward to start a new life. He rushes to his former office on the 12th floor. The Earth's demon was waiting for him, requesting an audience and introducing himself by name. A bit anxious about the answer awaiting him, when asked who you are and what your discussion is about, he informed the demon that he was a low-ranking commander from the Supreme Court. As his position did not fall under any specific unit, his division was referred to as the Flying Faction. The demon heeds his words and asks, "Then why do you require my assistance?" The man responds, implying he possesses information critical for the demon should he aspire to rise as a new leader. He needs to open the door. After much thought, the Earth's demon invited him inside. He's embracing new opportunities, symbolizing progress rather than stagnation. The Earth demon stands before him, but he hasn't fully formulated what he wants to say. Tell him he's funny without making him feel like a fool. Since the man's life was restarted, he had to begin anew. The earthly demon didn't recognize him, failing to provide any information about his past or what it could potentially offer. Sighing, the man recognizes the absurdity of the entire situation. However, he possesses the evidence, and this object could potentially offer him an opportunity. He opens it, hands it to the Earth's demon, and says, "Here it is." The demon, unable to quell his curiosity, inquires about the mysterious object. Our hero responds, "Read it and you shall understand it all." The Earth's demon is observing, yet he struggles to comprehend the man's motive. He accepts all the information by opening this card, and recognizes the validity and truthfulness of this information, which presents new opportunities. He is astounded by the sight and acknowledges its truth. The tone of voice alters as the situation approaches a climax. To validate his credentials, our protagonist. However, the Earth's demon responds with what he values most in life. He pledges his loyalty, claiming that his life as a subordinate squad leader is dedicated to serving the Earth's demon. Observing this man, the Earth demon fails to fully grasp his intentions. This adventurer intends to, I simply want to communicate to him that our protagonist aspires to gain greater strength. His sole motivation is to become stronger than anyone else. The Earth's demon quietly approaches the boy. He walks silently. The Earth demon approached him closely. Holding the map, he asserts that if this information is accurate, then the man achieves everything he desires. We proceed to the library where he abandoned the boy. The Earth demon departed to verify the information, leaving the boy in anxious anticipation. Despite the long wait, he could not relax, remaining hopeful that things would turn out well. Despite holding the highest position at the Demon Academy, his anxiety did not abate. Whether he was within the confines of the temple, in the courtyard, or secluded in his chamber, he struggled to fully comprehend the intricate political relations amongst the different factions. The boy only knows this about the Earth Demon. He is not the Supreme Court's lord, but the inaugural member of the Blood Demon group. 4 hours have elapsed, and the Earth's demon returns to him. He approaches him and says, "You mentioned your name." However, our hero is not at peace, as he is consumed by thoughts of what he will encounter in his next life. After these actions, the system enables him to save the current process and store it in a specific location. A noteworthy question is, why does the system suddenly generate a report? The 95 heavenly demons of the earth grant 3 lives, a process that is safeguarded. When confronted with the Earth Demon, the system provides you with 3 potential response options. Time halts, presenting the man with several distinct choices. He could choose to connect with the world around him in his own unique way, opt for the second choice and become a consultant to Earth's demon, or gravitate towards the third option. These robotic options leave a strong impression on our hero, as he has not yet encountered them. Each of these options will result in a totally different life. The symbol for each option represents its complexity. Each of these options is distinguished by its level of difficulty and how it shapes life's progression.